verse is a curse, going in for the kill. Rise up, lock in, man, it's go time. Buy the one-way ticket to my own grind. Feeling primitive, and it just to win it big. Don't want a little bit, get it when I flip the switch. I like the feeling when I fucking win. I wanna do that shit again and again and again. I have one speed, no brakes, full send. You know it's sink or swim, all the pressure is a friend. I'm attacking, attracting the death, and I'ma make it happen. I'm the captain, I'm steering the shit straight into the madness. Like a canvas, I'm painting the vision, never going back. And I just wanna fucking ball, push until I got it all. I feel the surge of adrenaline. Come on, I feel the blood pumping yet again. I feel the drive, I just wanna win. I feel the car wind coursing through my fucking skin. I'm locked in, maxed out, no plan B. I push the chips to the middle, that's everything. Risk it all for the person that I wanna be. Won't stop, that's the version that I'm gonna be.
I wake up every minute with the fever dreams. I push my mind to a limit where it needs to feed. I work blind, got vision I don't need to see. I'm picking mind over matter, I believe in me. I need to find more hours in the day to breathe. Need to find more power in the way I be. And when my mind turns sour with the painful scenes, I need to scream out loud, I can't stop me. I wanna be the greatest like Rocky. You know I leave them all hating like a hobby. I'm out here making moves like a lobby. And if you ain't with me, it's your loss, see. I got my mind on the facts, I'm a python. Grab what I like real fast, choke until I have everything. I attack everything that I lack, everything that I want, and I see, matter of fact.
Cause I'm my own worst enemy. Only if I let it be. I can control anything if I can just think carefully. I control my destiny. Deep up in my mind I manifest it. Every morning I wake up obsessed, and everything I do the best. And deep within my mind, you know I'll always manifest it.
Hello, and welcome to my Mind Over Your Matter. My name is Rick, and I have a little technical difficulties, but we're trying to work through those technical difficulties like usual. I can't stand StreamYard. It's the thing is like, man, if I'm gonna switch companies, I gotta take time off because I would have to test a new company and go through the whole system and learn a new system and implement the music to the system. It's just not gonna be easy, but I'm gonna have to do it. But happy Three King Day. It's El Día de los Tres Reyes. It's the Three Kings Day, and it's a very, very important day that the Democrats really don't like to celebrate. This is the day I think they hate the most. I mean, besides every other holiday, especially Christian holidays, they cannot stand kings. And during the summer they had the no kings, no kings. But then you start thinking, well, what happened to the three kings? Like, don't tell me that all these Mexicans and all these Latin people don't celebrate Three Kings, because then I'm gonna call them on their bullshit. So it is what it is, and we definitely got some stuff to watch. I'm gonna be putting some stuff together right now, and we're gonna just jump right to it with some Jason A. So, are you Mark? Get set. Let's go.
Thank you very much.
President, if you had to sum up Operation Absolute Resolve, would you say that it was about oil or it was about regime change?
It's about peace on earth.
How is it peace on earth?
Peace on earth. We got to have peace. It's our hemisphere. The Monroe Doctrine was very important when it was done, and other presidents, a lot of them, they lost sight of it. I didn't lose sight, but it really is. It's peace on earth. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, do you hear your resolution?
I have. Peace on earth. Peace on earth. You can come in if you'd like. We need Greenland for national security. Not for minerals. We have so many sites for minerals and oil and everything. We have more oil than any other country in the world. We need Greenland for national security. And if you take a look at Greenland, you look up and down the coast, you have Russian and Chinese ships all over the place.
Now they're asking the United States to stop the threats of taking over Greenland. International fallout from that U.S. attack on Venezuela reaching the shores of Danish territory now. Officials from Denmark and Greenland even asking for a meeting with Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Denmark joining France, Spain, and the UK, all putting out a joint statement now, pledging to keep defending Greenland's sovereignty, even calling the U.S. an essential partner in that.
Greenland, what Greenland now? Yeah, on Greenland. How did we come up to Greenland? So,
do you expect to take an action against Greenland?
Well, I don't want to talk about Greenland. Let's talk about Venezuela, Russia, Ukraine, and we'll worry about Greenland in about 2 months. Let's talk about Greenland in 20 days.
On Venezuela, we talk so much about energy.
By the way, I will say this about Greenland. We need Greenland. We need Greenland from a national security situation. It's so strategic. Right now, Greenland is covered with Russian and Chinese ships all over the place. We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security. And Denmark is not going to be able to do it, I can tell you. You know what Denmark did recently to boost up security in Greenland? They added one more dome sled. It's true. They thought that was a great move.
What would the justification be for a plane to Greenland?
Oh, I don't want to talk about Greenland now. I just say this. We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security. And the European Union needs us to have it, and they know.
Important topic. The premier of Greenland and the premier of Denmark and other Danish officials are responding to a Twitter post from your wife, Katie Miller, herself a former Trump White House official, showing Greenland covered with an American flag, saying soon. After that was posted, President Trump repeated the claim that the U.S. needs Greenland for national security reasons. The Danish prime minister responded to this In an interview earlier today, as reported by Bloomberg, quote, I believe one should take the American president seriously when he says it wants Greenland, but I will also make it clear that if the U.S. chooses to attack another NATO country militarily, then everything stops, including NATO, and thus the security that has been established since the end of the Second World War. Can you rule out that the U.S. is ever going to try to take Greenland by force?
All the way back, it dated to the Monroe Doctrines. And the Monroe Doctrine is a big deal, but we've superseded it by a lot, by a real lot. They now call it the Donroe Document. I don't know. It's Monroe Doctrine. We sort of forgot about it. It was very important, but we forgot about it. We don't forget about it anymore. Under our new national security strategy, American dominance in the Western Hemisphere will never be questioned again. Won't happen. So just in concluding, for decades, other administrations have neglected or even contributed to these growing security threats in the Western Hemisphere.
States need to take over the Venezuelan oil industry.
Well, we don't need to. First of all, let me go back up. We don't need Venezuela's oil. We have plenty of oil in the United States. What we're not going to allow is for the oil industry in Venezuela to be controlled by adversaries of the United States. You have to understand, why does China need their oil? Why does Russia need their oil? Why does Iran need their oil? They're not even in this continent. This is the Western Hemisphere. This is where we live. And we're not going to allow the Western Hemisphere to be a base of operation for adversaries, competitors, and rivals of the United States.
Have specific oil companies.
We also want to see that oil and the proceeds from it. Hold on. We want to see the oil proceeds of that country benefit the people of Venezuela.
Well, let me go back a step. The president has been clear for months now. So I know this is breaking news. The president has been clear for months now that the United States should be the nation that has Greenland as part of our overall security apparatus. The United
Right, but
States,
your wife posted that like hours after the Venezuela operation. That's why it's newly relevant.
No, I'll talk with you about it for an hour. I think it's a really important conversation. I just wanted to reset, Jake, by making clear that it has been the formal position of the U.S. government since the beginning of this administration, frankly, going back into the previous Trump administration, that Greenland should be part of the United States. The president has been very clear about that. That is the formal position of the U.S. government.
Right, but can you say that military action against Greenland is off the table?
It wouldn't be military action against Greenland. The Greenland has a population of 30,000 people, Jake. The real question is, by what right does Denmark assert control over Greenland? What is the basis of their territorial claim? What is their basis of having Greenland as a colony of Denmark? The United States is the power of NATO. For the United States to secure the Arctic region, to protect and defend NATO and NATO interests, obviously Greenland should be part of the United States. That's a conversation that we're going to have as a country. That's a process we're going to have as a community of nations.
So you can't take it off the table that the U.S. would use military force to seize Greenland. You can't take it off the table.
Jake, I understand you're trying very hard to, which again is your job. I respect it. It's great to get exactly the headline, right? That catchy headline.
I'm trying to get an answer to the question.
That says Miller refuses to rule out the United States should have Greenland as part of the United States. There's no need to even think or talk about this in the context that you're asking of a military operation. Nobody's going to fight the United States militarily over the future of Greenland.
One last question,
doesn't
Stephen.
Make any sense.
One last question.
What do you think is concerning European leaders the most right now about just all the rhetoric we're hearing regarding Greenland?
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, these repeated threats now from the Trump administration about taking over Greenland are causing major alarm in both Greenland and Denmark, but also in Europe. And we've been seeing significant public pushback. Today, we've seen the Danish Prime Minister warn that a U.S. attack on Greenland would amount to the end of the NATO alliance and also an end to the post-World War II security order. We've also seen today a joint statement from Greenland's government alongside the key European powers, which is France, the the UK, Germany, as well as Poland. It's a carefully worded statement where they take note of the US's concerns about security, but say that Greenland is part of NATO and that these issues can be addressed within the alliance. And they say the alliance is already doing so. But I think really what has happened here is that since Venezuela and what we've seen happen in Venezuela, combined with the immediate follow-on threats towards Greenland, has caused many people in Europe to suddenly start taking these threats, which began very early on in President Trump's second term. They've begun to take them much more seriously. And of course, a US takeover of Greenland by force against the will of Denmark would be tantamount to an invasion of a NATO member. It would easily be the biggest crisis in the alliance's history. And so now we are seeing European countries have to take this extraordinary, unthinkable thing seriously, Kira.
Also today, Mexico's president responding to all of this, saying, quote, "We categorically reject intervention in internal affairs of other countries." And that likely would include her own, is what she's saying there, Andrew.
Yeah, and Jason, of course, you're somebody who spent a lot of time in the ground in Ukraine. It doesn't necessarily naturally make you think of Ukraine, but are there implications? What's going on in Venezuela for the conflict between Russia and Kyiv?
There's an inescapable implication. That comes to this idea of spheres of influence, right? If the United States can have its sphere of influence, then Putin could certainly argue and make the case that, well, I'm entitled to my sphere of influence, and that would include Ukraine. And we certainly know that Trump himself has
that has nothing to do with the United
States. He's open to the idea, encouraging the idea of exchanging land in Ukraine. So this is a very critical moment right now. And Trump's critics are saying this takes away any moral high ground, not just with Russia, but also with China. China, what about China's sphere of influence? Could that include Taiwan? China would certainly make that case.
Democrats.
Jason Bellini, our international correspondent. So interesting how all of these are seemingly interwoven together. Thank you for your perspective.
It's about peace on earth.
How is it peace on earth?
Peace on earth. We got to have peace. It's our hemisphere. The Monroe Doctrine was very important when it was done, and other presidents, a lot of them, they lost sight of it. I didn't lose sight, but it really is. It's peace on earth. Thank you very much.
All right, Jason A., some valid points, right? We need Greenland to protect that side of the region, especially from our equipment that we have and the launch capabilities that we have. Greenland is a perfect area for us to strategically shoot our rockets that way if we need to go after, like, let's say, Russia. If they attack and destroy UK, you think the United States is not going to step in to help? Should we just sit back and just let all the destruction happen in Europe, and then the US is like, all right, since you don't want to help us with Greenland, you don't want to help us at all, we're not going to help you at all. Fight for your own. Let's see how you do. We'll watch. And then when everything is settled and you come crawling to us, begging us, then you're going to give us all the land. Does it have to come to that? But these Democrats, they love fear. They love to project fear. They love to push these, like, oh my God, they're going to invade. Ah, Marudos, you kidnapped Marudos. Ah. Are you fucking kidding me? I don't know how in the world we live, like in the United States, that we're supposed to be united, but yet we're divided by parties. Help me make that make sense, because it really, truly does not make sense to me. Like, there shouldn't be any party. We should be a united party that we vote on everything together. Like, look at that. Even though I want to zoom in, together. We have to do this together. We cannot be divided. If we're divided, how are we going to conquer? We are not, because we're always going to be pulling each other's strings back and forth. We're not going to win this tug of war. It's a losing battle. And we're trying to get the upper hand by getting Greenland, so that way, in case, and this isn't in case, it's not like, oh, we're going to take over, we're going to do all this and that. No, it's for military purposes. is for, to get our equipment closer to the battle zones that are going to be in the future. You're going to see some crazy shit happening. Don't be surprised if Russia attacks Europe in some kind of way this year. I would not be surprised if they attack UK. I wouldn't be surprised at all. Maybe it needs to happen for them to be like, oh shit, yeah, we should listen more to the United States, and yeah, we should, definitely be on their side instead of on the Democratic side and doing all this stupidity that's bringing down their country. Like UK is turning to complete shithole, and it sucks because that country is so prestigious, and yet people that infiltrate it are destroying it. That's sad. All right, guys, let's set up for the next. See the next show here. Here we go.
Wait.
The mother of the young man accused of vandalizing the Vice President J.D. Vance's home, is speaking out tonight. Thanks for joining us here at 4 o'clock. I'm Cherie Palillo.
And I'm Ashley Kirkland. William DeFore's mother talked with us this afternoon after her son was arraigned on federal charges. WLWT News
son or daughter? Because I heard this person's transgender.
Downtown with more. Hi, Carrie.
It's a transgender.
Well, hey guys, Catherine DeFore did speak to us here after the federal court hearing. She described her son's struggles with mental illness and ended her statement with prayer that included the Vance family. Her son, 26-year-old William DeFore, is charged both at the state and federal level. Here is video of him being booked into the Hamilton County Justice Center yesterday. DeFore is accused of using a hammer to break windows, 14 glass panels at J.D. Vance's Cincinnati home. The vice president and his family were not home as they already returned to D.C. This morning, DeFore was arraigned on the state charges.
Okay, I have to pause it real quick. I have to make a quote. This is a great quote from a great actor. And this actor's name is Arnold Schwarzenegger. You know Arnold Schwarzenegger. And it's from the movie Predator. Remember the movie Predator? Where he comes to like, you were one ugly motherfucker. That's what this guy is one ugly motherfucker. Transgender, whatever he wants to be. I don't give a fuck. This person should not be out and about. This person is a menace to society, but yet the court systems fail every single time and let this individual go out into the public to cause more menace. When is it going to stop? When people like this are this disturbed, they should not be out in the public. They should not be amongst us. They need to be in a mental institute. My God. So fucking look at this. What the fuck is this? Ugh.
And given an $11,000 bond. His attorney said this is a political issue. He says health issue. This afternoon in federal court, prosecutors asked he be detained while the case plays out. So now a detention hearing has been set for Friday. His mother spoke to the media afterwards.
Mental illness.
Mental illness. Of course, you're gonna go after mental illness,
which can take over the life of a beautiful person.
Oh Lord, where's my violin? I need a violin.
Fortunately,
I didn't
for
get
our
one for the
child,
holidays. I need to get a
it has
violin.
taken over his life in a way that we could never have imagined.
I swear to God, I need to get a violin.
And she did speak to the media, but she did not take any questions afterwards. However, I did have an opportunity to ask DeFore's attorney a few questions. Earlier this morning in Hamilton County Court, he said, this is not a political issue. This is a mental health issue. I said, well, then why J.D. Vance's home? And
Exactly.
he told me that he's not even sure his client knew it was the Vance household. Reporting live tonight downtown.
They attacked
Johnson,
a Secret Service car.
Sharon, you mentioned DeFore's mother saying a prayer at the end of her statement,
this is
and it included the Vance family.
mess.
What specifically did she say?
Yeah, Ashley, she said, that for the first time in her life,
covering
she
for him.
is now raising a family in the public eye. She says that's all new to her. She also says she understands the Vances have put themselves out there to support our democracy. And she asks them she just says that she hopes that they are supported during this time.
All right, Karen Johnson live for us tonight. Thanks so much, Karen. And WLWT will continue to lead the way on.
All right, but it doesn't give him or she, whoever that clown is, the authority to go to anybody's home or property to destroy with a hammer. Like, does this make any fucking sense? But the mother wants to play cover and play the shield. Oh, my baby has mental health issues. Please, you have to understand and release him so he could cause more havoc and more destruction. And yet, nothing, no accountability, zero. America is the country of zero accountability. That's what America is right now. And that's bullshit. And I think Trump needs to change that and bring more strict, rules and laws to prevent stupid idiots like the trans going crazy, attacking and killing people all over the place. But specifically this crazy butch looking, I don't know, woof individual, got to keep them in a mental institution. And if they're not ready to be out with the public, keep them in there. It's better for him and or she is better for us. Here we go. Let's keep it moving.
In Venezuela, the country's legislature has convened for another 5-year term. It follows the bold U.S. military raid on the country's capital and the capture of President Nicolas Maduro and his wife. The National Assembly is the highest body of the legislative branch and presided over by Jorge Rodriguez. He has been president of the Venezuelan National Assembly since 2021, and he is the brother of Delcy Rodriguez, Venezuela's new leader. As we saw a few moments ago, she's now been sworn in. Rodriguez served as Maduro's vice president since 2018, overseeing much of Venezuela's oil-dependent economy, as well as its feared intelligence service. She initially called Nicolas Maduro's capture a violation of international law, but she has now changed her tune, saying she is offering to collaborate with the Trump administration. Since taking over from Maduro, Delcy Rodriguez has reached out to Donald Trump, striking a conciliatory tone. For more on what she's saying, we have an update from Manuel Rueda. He's a Venezuelan journalist currently working in Colombia's capital.
Well, Rodriguez's swearing in is based on a ruling, an emergency ruling by Venezuela's Supreme Court that says that President Maduro is temporarily unavailable to fulfill his duties. So Rodriguez has basically been given 90 days as interim president that can be extended for another 3 months with a vote from Venezuela's National Assembly. What she's saying, she's changed her tune towards the U.S. overnight, basically. So what she's saying now is that she's looking to establish a balanced relationship with the United States based on respects for both nations and wants to establish a broad agenda of cooperation.
She said the truth out loud, and yet she's backtracking what she said.
The following days,
I'm supposed to trust
the U.S.
that person?
reopening its Venezuela, for instance, recognizing the Venezuelan government, which they don't recognize, and also we'll have to see if there will be any moves with regards to oil companies, with regards to the liberation of political prisoners in Venezuela, and if Rodriguez, the new Rodriguez government, will agree to establish sanctions. That's a key point. Leader Maria Corina Machado. It was a pretty shocking development. It just made it look like the opposition has totally been sidelined. Machado, who was recently given the Nobel Peace Prize for her efforts to restore democracy in Venezuela, has been relatively quiet. She published a message a few minutes ago thanking President Trump for arresting Maduro and saying that liberty to Venezuela will come soon. But she is not. But this also, it's a previous message she had issued on Saturday after the attack, where she was saying that her protege Edmundo Gonzalez should be immediately installed as president of Venezuela. Now, if you recall, there was an election in Venezuela in 2014, which the evidence shows that the opposition clearly won with around 70% of the vote. What the opposition is saying is that since they won the election, but Maduro stayed in power regardless, they should be given power right now. That's what Maria Corina Machado was saying on Saturday. She's kind of scaled that back. And what seems to be happening here is that there are negotiations between the Venezuelan opposition and the U.S. government over, whether the U.S. is really going to insist on a timeline for a new election or what will happen next. But yeah, the opposition has been caught flat-footed, I think, by this situation somehow.
Journalist Manuel Rueda in Colombia's capital.
All right, let's keep it moving because we got more to watch.
And if the Republicans go along with Donald Trump on Venezuela, Americans will pay the price in blood and in tread, while Republicans could very well pay the price politically.
This wasn't a law enforcement action. To the people when they say that.
This all started in early September.
Yeah, why we keep
Never mind that
listening
the
to
drugs that
fucking
kill
idiots?
Americans are fentanyl, not the cocaine that comes out of Venezuela. But look, I think you have to take the president at his word. 22 times in his press conference, he used the word oil.
Okay, there are big name Democrats
Well,
pressing
yeah,
the arrest
oil.
of Maduro.
What the
Some on the
fuck,
left
you got a
reported
problem
think the
with
party
oil?
should be celebrating the move. Senator
What the
Mark
hell's
Wayne
wrong with
Mullin,
these
member of the
people?
Armed Service Committee, a Republican. Senator, welcome
These
back to our
Democrats,
program
they don't know how to
here.
progress. They know
This
how to
is
go
Chuck
backwards.
Schumer,
That's what they know how to do.
then February 2020, and this is him last
They
night.
do everything in reverse.
And the president brags about his Venezuela policy? Give us a break.
This guy's a fucking
He
hypocrite.
hasn't brought an end to the Maduro regime. The Maduro regime is more powerful today and more entrenched today than it was when the president began. When the United States engages in this kind of regime change,
This guy's a
so-called
hypocrite.
nation
Listen to
building,
him.
it always ends up hurting the United States. I left the briefing feeling that it would again.
Okay, apparently
This
that
guy's
briefing
an
was in
idiot.
depth. It went almost 2.5 hours. Hard to keep the other side happy, I guess, Senator. What's your view on that?
Bill, what you have is Democrats. They're not America policy. They're not America first policy. They're not for pro-America. They're for politics. I mean, obviously, you see Chuck Schumer, that is the biggest hypocrite that I've ever been around in my life,
That's what I
who
said.
is contradicting himself just 5 years ago, because that speech that he gave was in 2018. You also have Dick Durbin that gave the similar speech at the similar time in 2018. You have Tim Klein, exact same thing, and Chris Murphy, who came out and you said, quote, getting rid of Maduro is good for the United States. That was in 2019. Now,
Because it's Trump in office. That's why.
good for America, and that it's about regime change. We know for a fact that Maduro was running drugs into the United States and was killing our friends and our family members, poisoning our states. And for Jim Hines to go out there and say that cocaine isn't killing people, it's fentanyl. I'm going, excuse me? I'm sorry. Cocaine isn't tearing apart families. Cocaine hasn't tore apart families for decades now. How ridiculous is someone to say something like that because their hatred for President Trump? How about we stop the politics and do what's right for America first? But the Democrats are incapable of doing that.
Okay, apparently behind closed doors, it might be a different conversation. I say that because of this quote from Axios. Democrats fume at their party's response to Maduro capture. Some Dems grumble at their party's largely oppositional stance to Trump's raid to capture Maduro, saying privately that their colleagues should be celebrating. So, I mean, that's in the water, as we say a little bit. I think the more relevant question now, what's happening inside Caracas? What's happening in all these towns and villages throughout Venezuela? It's kind of a blind spot right now, unless you've got information that could illuminate a little bit as to what's happening there today.
Well, Jim, first of all,
Bill.
Democrat leadership is the one that's taking the role. If their members aren't agreeing with them, then they need to come out and get in front of the camera and say so. Now, going back to what's happened in Venezuela, what we have done is we gave the Venezuela people an opportunity to get back to democracy that they lost 25 years ago when the dictatorships first started. And we are closely watching it. We have We don't have military on the ground, but we have eyes on the ground, paying attention, wishing the best for the Venezuela people. They're going to be the one making the decision here. And we want to restore democracy back in Venezuela. Obviously, I think what President Trump is doing here and what the administration is doing here is looking at the Western Hemisphere and saying we need to take care of our own backyard. Man, I am excited about it. He's the first president to do this in decades, and he's putting America first, which is exactly what we need to do, because we're seeing socialism creep way too close to us. I mean, we see what's happening in New York right now. We see what's happening in Central and South America. And for President Trump to take a strong stance and saying, one, you're not going to poison our streets. You're not going to continue bringing the drugs in, but we're also going to be watching at the politics perspective too.
Okay, Senator, thank you for coming back here and waiting here with the president too. That's coming up momentarily.
Bill.
Mark Wayne Mullen, thank you very much. The Republican
Thanks for
from
having me
Oklahoma. Thanks for coming back. Dana.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
That's listen, man. It's the Democrats is just a lost cause party. They've been infiltrated. They've been corrupt. And it's not the same Democratic Party at all.
No,
they've been infiltrated in a horrible way. And how are we going to get the bad people out of the Democratic Party? How are you going to fix this is the question, right? How are you going to fix the Democratic Party? The only way we're going to have to do this is abolish both parties. All parties, just get rid of both parties. There's no parties no more. Just one for all. That's it. We're the United States. We're not the divided states of America. That's not my check. We're not, but we've been acting like it lately, so kind of sucks. All right, let's continue on here with Jason A.
Now, it is this little horn that John identifies in Revelation 13 as the beast. In 13:1, John writes, I saw a beast coming out of the sea, which refers to humanity. And he had 10 horns and 7 heads. The 10 horns represent 10 nations. The 7 represent 7 rulers. But he said each of them had on their crowns a name of blasphemy. So he's talking about this final empire, which his whole orientation is anti-Christ, anti-God, anti-Bible, anti-truth. And then he says, this last beast I saw resembled a leopard, but he had the feet like those of a bear and the mouth like that of a lion. So suddenly this last beast that he describes first as a little horn that's boasting and blasphemous, and it rises up and it displaces the other horns and takes over and becomes this authority. It starts off as a confederation of nations, but then it becomes really brought down to one individual who's calling all the shots. And then he said he was different in the fact that he looked like a leopard, he looked like a lion, he looked like a bear. In other words, it's almost like a composite of all the other kingdoms that have come together. So if you try to look at it from a historical point of view, it's essentially he's saying in the end of time, there's this final empire that will rise up and rule over the world, and it will draw to it all of the characteristics, good and bad, of every empire in the history of the world. Now, I've often taught that the Antichrist spirit, as we'll see, is still in the world. It's been there since Adam and Eve were deceived and Satan took over the governance of men. But what's really interesting is that they all had their strengths and weaknesses. But think about this final ruler is a composite of all the worst characteristics of every despotic, totalitarian autocrat that's ever reigned. I mean, he's like Nimrod combined with Alexander the Great and Julius Caesar and Napoleon and Hitler and Stalin. I mean, you're getting all of the worst psychopathic personalities are being compressed into this one person, because as we go on, what it says is that just as Satan gave power to each one of those to rise to their points of authority, he gives all of his authority and all of his power to this last world leader. That's the direction. You might reflect for a moment what it would be like to be ruled by such a personality. Well, the dragon, or Satan, it goes on and says, gave the beast his power, his throne, and great authority. And it says the whole world was astonished and followed the beast. And men worshiped the dragon, which is Satan, because he had given authority to the beast. And they also worshiped the beast and asked, who is like the beast? Who can make war against him? Now, later on to the equation is added the false prophet, and these three make up the demonic trinity. Satan seeks to fill the role of God the Father. The Antichrist tries to play the role of the Messiah, the Son of God, and the false prophet becomes a replacement for the Holy Spirit. And this becomes the evil trinity, where essentially they seek to build a whole new false religion to displace all of the religions, including Christianity. It goes on to say the beast was given a mouth to utter proud words and blasphemy, and to exercise his authority for 42 months or 3.5 years. So if you recall, we've been talking about the chronology of the tribulation. First 3.5 years, the Antichrist comes to power and everybody thinks he's incredible, tremendous, wonderful. And then in the middle, he reveals who he is, and that becomes the beginning of the end. The clock of his own desolation and destruction begins to run through the last 3.5 years. It says he opened his mouth to blaspheme God and to slander his name and his dwelling place. In other words, you don't want to go to heaven. That's not a fun place to be. And those who live in heaven, and he was given power to make war against the saints and to conquer them. And he was given authority over every tribe, people, language, and nation. And all inhabitants of the earth will worship the beast, all whose names have not been written in the book of life. But again, in the first 3.5 years of the tribulation, the world is going to end with this new government, this new economy, this new religious and spiritual system. But most important, they're going to be enamored by this incredibly dynamic leader. And I think that's something that's a little hard for us to grasp, because in our age of being able to get close and personal with many people who are in public profile, we see them warts and all. The only people that don't see the warts are people who refuse to see them, but otherwise they're pretty obvious. And you know, even though I don't think this would happen in our country, but sometimes you can have the media lie about someone and make you think that it's different than what it is, when anybody with, well, anyway, I'm going too far. You can't help but see the obvious. You know what I mean? It becomes obvious. And yet think about a world where all the information channels are controlled completely. We see the potentiality with things like AI. I remember when I was first going over to Russia and I was interviewed by Pravda, which was the Russian national newspaper. And it became very clear to me that it didn't matter what I said, the article had already been written. They just wanted sound bites to take. And I found that the journalist, I was interviewed by a Canadian journalist recently, and I found out he'd already written the article. He was just looking for quotes that he could stick in there. And he quoted me directly something I didn't say. But it fit better in the article as far as where he wanted to go. But think about this, where all information is basically designed to tell you that we're entering into, as Disney promised us, a great, big, beautiful tomorrow. Everything's going to be great. When you realize that that's probably going to be the narrative, you understand why God begins to pour judgments upon the earth. God is wrecking the party. He's that uninvited guest who seems to make everything go wrong from their perspective. Well, as it says in Daniel 7, it said, he looked more imposing. In other words, larger in appearance and more formidable than the others, and that he had eyes and a mouth that spoke boastfully. And it says the whole world was astonished in Revelation 13 and followed the beast, and men worshiped the dragon because he had given authority to the beast. And they also worshiped the beast and asked, who is like the beast? Who can make war against him? Now, again, to many of us who have lived long enough to realize just because something glitters, it doesn't make it gold, we realize that people can look great, but when you get beyond the surface, you find out that people are just people and they have warts like everybody else. But think about a people who are so conditioned, as they have been by despotic empires throughout history, that this is someone who should be worshipped.
Wow. That was powerful, Jason A. Awesome upload. Let's keep it moving because we got a lot more to watch. Trust. It gets more wilder.
New York City is pushing forward a far-left agenda. And Mayor Zoran Mamdani has tapped a hardliner from the Democrat Socialists of America to run the office to protect tenants. Her name is Sia Weaver. A resurfaced video shows how Sia Weaver felt about private property just a few years ago, 2021.
I think the reality is that for centuries, we've really treated property as an individualized good and not a collective good. And we are going to transitioning to treating it as a collective good and towards a model of shared equity will require that we think about it differently. And it will mean that families, especially white families, but some POC families who are homeowners as well, are going to have a different relationship to property than the one that we currently have.
Let's finish all of our sentences in a question.
Yes, Harris?
I'm Ron Burgundy. I've never lived in New York. I mean, you're not allowed to be an individual here. You can't even live alone, apparently.
Well, so I reached out to Hermit Dillon about this, the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights at the U.S. Department, because this has got her attention, and they're paying attention to what they're trying to do here in New York City. And this is what she told me. Let's scroll down here. She told me that the Civil Rights Division of the DOJ is on high alert as to the radical agenda promised by Mayor Mamdani, much of which is at odds with our federal constitution and civil rights norms. We will not hesitate to take legal action to protect the civil rights of New York City residents. So they are ready to pounce the Trump administration. And so that might be the saving grace for New Yorkers against some of this crazy nonsense.
But what can they do other than pull federal funding? Not that that's not a big deal, but I mean, they can't come in here and force Mamdani to change his laws.
Well, no, but if it runs afoul against some federal law, then, Paul would probably be able to speak better to that. Paul, I'm going to kick that over to you. Since it's a
You're right, Lisa.
I've seen my time to the gentleman.
How does that work? And also, I mean, while you're making it work, if you can, what is Mamdani's next step likely?
At some point here, he's going to have to reveal, or at least recognize, I should say, that he's got to start talking to his lawyers. Because at the end of the day, you are part of America, all right? And when you run completely afoul of the Constitution, you are not going to win, and you're going to lose real fast. And when you say things like, we're going to tax white neighborhoods more than other neighborhoods, or we're going to confiscate private property.
That's discrimination.
There's a couple of federal laws that kind of obtain there, Guy, and they're revealing their inexperience, and they're really revealing it early, huh? And all I can say is this: I don't want to be ruled by anybody who is indulging in upspeak. All right, no more of that. All right, that's not really very.
Every sentence is a question.
No, all right, no.
Used to drive my dad crazy. It's like just talking a statement. Emily, it's interesting because it's almost like he wants to be ruggedly individualistic in his politics.
While touting the collective warmth.
Yeah, but he's forgetting he's in America.
Exactly.
He's in the United States of America. He's just a mayor of fucking city.
And I shouldn't this early in the year by this. Because we talked about ad nauseum. We warned people, we warned our fellow New Yorkers about what would happen. And I'm so patently disheartened
voting machines
at
are
the lack
fucking rigged.
of
So
people showing up.
it was going to be impossible
but it was still
for
a
any
demoralizing
Republican to
little
win.
percentage of people that live here. And that we voted this person into office. And that he has
I wonder
now
how many
since sort of
times
collected
the Somali people
what I
voted
see
for
as
Mamdani.
emblematic of our academic indoctrination. Just a bunch of young people sitting in her apartment with her shirt
People are
falling
not
off her
supposed to be
shoulder, telling
voting,
me about
voted
land
in
ownership.
the election.
Well, you know what?
How is that possible?
Mamdani said that
With
also
no
in
accountability.
his inauguration speech. He said the same exact words, What they're doing right now, Harris, is they're going after who they consider the worst landlord, Pinnacle Group, because they have a number of apartments that have not been taken care of, no heat, no air conditioning. But they got to look inward because the city is the worst landlord.
Yeah,
NYCHA
the city is
the
not taking
worst
care of their
landlord.
own people.
Year after year, they cannot get the heat on, the air conditioning on, the lead painting right, the mice situation under control. And then on top of that, they are warehousing thousands of empty apartments.
Do you remember, we talked about where Maduro is staying, right? Sightline of the Statue of Liberty. Remember the blackouts, a week-long blackouts? They were without heat
Nope.
and food. They can't even get the prisons right here. You are right.
Nope.
And now we are having trusted into children that upspeak these kind of large policies that have zero experience in actual running this city of this magnitude. That is why everyone has fled. It is frightening. This is the tip of the iceberg.
I'm Ron Burgundy. That's like the most famous upspeak that I can think of. We're outnumbered in a moment.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee Met.
All right, let's keep it moving because it's only going to get more interesting. Oh Christ, what's going on here? Demon, what is going on here? Oh shit! Oh shit! Attack with the American flag! Yeah, attack that bitch with the American flag! Attack that bitch with the American flag! Attack that bitch with the American flag! Yo, grab her by her hair and punch her in her throat. Hey, look, I'm gonna throw the American flag in your mouth. Jesus is king. And it's Three Kings Day. If you don't respect Jesus, y'all going to hell.
Counter protester both of the original January 6th and this one.
Hit someone?
Yes.
Yes. Lady, we got it all on camera with your bull.
Whoa, that's a police officer.
You're under arrest, girl.
Drop your microphone, drop your things, you're going to jail. Yeah, this Bike Patrol officer looks like a fucking G.I. Joe. Figure.
Back up, guys, back up. Everyone back up.
USA, everybody, USA. Yo, this is what accountability looks like. This is what, this, like, literally, we need accountability, but this is what accountability looks like. Lock her up, lock her up.
Am I insulting her? You want to use that?
Good luck, because it's on camera. You crazy nut.
Get back! Everybody back up, please! Back up! Everybody, I told you, hold the line! Back up!
Okay, we're backing up. That's what accountability looks like. We need accountability, and that's what it looks like. And thank God, accountability. Please wake up. We need more of you. Come on. Let's keep it moving.
A live look right now at Lake Eola in downtown Orlando, where we've learned 19 royal mute swans and 2 wild birds have died at the Lake Eola Park there just over the last few weeks, and all of them have tested positive for bird flu. As we talked about, the city of Orlando says it is
the swans got bird flu?
Address this, disinfecting surfaces around the park, putting up signs, trying to reduce contact between people and the birds there. But we want to talk more about the avian flu and what this means, putting this in context for us as well. So we're going to bring in Dr. Benjamin Anderson, an assistant professor and the director of the MHS One Health program at UF's College of Public Health and Health Professions. Dr. Anderson, we appreciate you joining us this afternoon here on Fox 35 News Plus.
Birds are sick too.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
I wonder how they got
first,
sick.
I just want to get your reaction as an expert in this when you hear about something like this and you see these numbers coming out from downtown Orlando.
Well, the reactions we always have when we see these reports is first, the concern for the animals that are there that are impacted is concerning. But from the epidemiology standpoint, it's not a surprise that we're seeing outbreaks occur, as we've
How
been
the hell
seeing
did they
these
get
occur
sick?
for now 3
Question.
years. And this is something that's happening in the larger landscape of what we're calling bird flu ecology. The issue of bird flu has impacted the United States in the past, and for the last 3 years, since 2022, we have seen a consistent number of outbreaks occurring as H5, particularly that strain that we're concerned about, has resulted in numerous of these kinds of outbreaks, both in the state of Florida and elsewhere in the United States.
So my next question was going to be, how would something like this come in? But it sounds like it's just it's out there in a lot of places, and so how would cases like that come from the outer kind of area to zero in on Lake Eola?
Yeah, absolutely. So how bird flu, and we'll call this H5, the
One,
strain of
two
bird
wild
flu
birds
that
dead
is the
as a
concern
positive
here,
for
how it's
avian
moving
flu.
around is actually through migratory
Avian flu.
waterfowl. So these migratory birds travel great distances
Great.
seasonally, moving from warmer and colder climates as they
No, they migrate.
migrate. They rest along their migratory pathways. And as they do so, they have the opportunity to mix with other types of avian species. Now, what's the issue with the waterfowl carrying the virus is those birds typically don't get sick, but they
Yeah,
can still be
that's why it's
infected
weird.
and they can carry that virus and shed the virus into
How
the
did they get
environment
sick?
and around them. So when they are coming through, they're an excellent vector for bringing the virus into environments where they might mix and mingle
And
with
these birds don't
species
sleep
of
around.
animals,
They're not
primarily
like
birds,
they're
that
not
are
like
susceptible to the
I
virus.
was
And when
gonna
that
say
takes
dirty
place, we
birdies, but
see
yeah,
these
they're not
kinds
dirty
of
birdies.
die-offs occur.
When they have a partner, they
You
stick
talk
with their
about these
partner, and
larger
they don't sleep
kind
around.
of outbreaks over the past few years.
So how
Are
did these
these
birds get
smaller
sick?
kind of incidents of these outbreaks and cases, is that common to see?
Yeah, that's a common question we get. And I wanted to give your viewers some context of the numbers. So 2022 is when we started to see the strain of virus reintroduced back into the United States through these migratory birds. We started actions of bird flu in different kinds of outbreaks, both in the waterfowl and the birds that they might be mingling with. And in the state of Florida, since that time, there's been about 1,000 detections of H5 in the state, but the majority of those were actually back in 2022. If we are to zoom in on Orange County, the numbers that we have for those is that actually in Orange County since 2022, there's been 53 H5 detections since that time. And again, the majority of those detections in Orange County were back in 2022, which were part of a black vulture die-off. There's only been about 8 detections over the last 2 years in Orange County, one of which was a previous impact there at the lake where swans were affected as well. So it's to say that the virus is pretty widely spread through the United States with the fact that these migratory birds
Is
can
the
move
virus in the water?
broadly throughout
Like how
the
did they
areas of the
contracted
migratory
this
bird pathways
virus?
that exist. We are then getting these sporadic outbreaks taking place, but hopefully those numbers are helpful to get a better idea of kind of the context of the scale of the transmission that's actually
Dude,
taking
you're not
place.
answering any
Yeah, very
questions.
helpful. Should
How
this
the
be a
fuck did they get
concern?
sick?
Well, it's always a concern when we're looking at this kind of virus. This is a type of influenza virus. It's similar in the flu viruses that we have in people, but this particular virus is predominantly impacting birds, which is why it's coined bird flu. But what we know about influenza viruses is that influenza has the ability to change and can mix with other influenza viruses, and it can adapt in ways that are able to give it the ability to jump into new animal species, including humans. So while right now the risk to humans is very low and is not a great concern at the present in terms of what impact it would have on the human population, the future risk, we have to be very cautious and we have to monitor it closely because, again, the virus can change. So it's really important that people be aware that this virus is out there and be aware of the risk factors, which right now is primarily contact with infected animal species such as migratory birds or other kinds of species that are known to carry the virus, including domestic poultry, which we've seen a lot of outbreaks occur there, chickens and turkeys and ducks. So the majority of the risk is really associated with people who have really close and intense contact with those animals that actually are infected. But for the broader public, the risk still remains very low.
How can we better prepare for something like this? Is there something that can be done, or are we just kind of at the at the risk of something like this happening because of the kind of broader situation that you've been talking about?
Well, the tools that we have in public health vary, and they depend on the situation. At this point, the main tool is really avoiding exposure and understanding where those exposure risks occur. And so that's what you previously describing contact with animals that are potentially likely to harbor the virus. Avoiding those exposures is very ideal. In terms of controlling the mixing of wild birds with some of our more local species, that's another area where different agencies are involved in looking at how to mitigate the risk of that potential mixing taking place. But that's a difficult one to eliminate. So this is where being vigilant in monitoring, both from a active standpoint, so having surveillance in place to monitor the health of different kinds of species we know to be susceptible, and having the public be aware if they see certain
don't be around the birds.
Types of
Don't swim in the
clinical
water.
signs and animals that they are observing, to be cognizant of bird flu as a possibility and being active and reporting that. So we do have active reporting systems in the state of Florida, particularly
Imagine all
for
the other
wildlife.
birds
It's
that
the
are
Florida Fish and
sick
Wildlife
and they're
Commission,
probably dying,
FWC, and the public
and they
can
don't even know
call
about.
or submit an online form, and they will follow up and investigate that. But the main takeaway is don't make contact
They're
with
not answering the
animals
question of
that you see
how
are
did these
sick or
birds
dead.
get sick?
Definitely make sure that a professional
Is
is
it in the
doing that, and
water?
that you're
Because you
reporting
see
that
how
to the
they
right
go in the
authorities so
water
it can
and
be
they
handled
always
appropriately.
putting their mouths
So
in the
what's the
water.
bottom line here, Dr. Anderson? What should people know?
Is it the
or what should
water that's
people,
sick?
do here in Orlando, especially if they're going to be around Lake Eola Park?
Like,
Yeah,
are they
so following
testing
the
the water?
recommendations that have been posted are a great idea. Again, avoidance is a big part of that. Now, obviously, avoiding a park that people love to go to is not always ideal, but even if you do decide to go in any environment where there is wildlife or waterfowl, the recommendation stands that do everything you can to avoid contact with those animals, including feeding the birds. This is something that would be a recommendation in really any environment that you're in the state. The other recommendations hold true. Avoid contact with bird feces. That's another way the virus is transmitted. And so sometimes people may walk
so
through
the water.
areas where there could have been feces on the ground. So just be aware of that.
There could be
And
feces
if
in the
you're
water
concerned,
too.
you can always clean your shoes. You can disinfect those. And in general, just to practice good
Don't step on
hygiene.
shit.
Wash your hands, make sure you're not making contact with things that would potentially have a risk of exposure. So following those is going to be a very good measure of keeping yourself safe and still being able to enjoy the environment that you're in.
Where do things go from here? Is this something that we could continue to see more bird deaths around Lake Eola before they stop?
This is where, from the
I say yes,
kind of scientific perspective, the question of whether or not this virus is going to stick with us. We're now into essentially the fourth year of seeing the virus show up and cause sporadic outbreaks. We'll have to continue to monitor and see what kind of changes occur in the migratory birds, because that's what's really driving the number of cases and the number of outbreaks that we're seeing, including these spillovers that are taking place, like has occurred here. And the thinking is that, yes, we probably are going to see what we call an endemicity. So this virus will probably stick around in these birds. How it will continue to change or affect domestic species, we'll have to just continue to monitor. So again, it comes back to the risk that exists now. This virus can change, and we always have to be vigilant to monitor to make sure that we don't see changes that are going to influence it changing the risk to other animals and the public. So the biggest takeaway is to just be informed, follow the basic recommendations that are posted and that are available. There's many resources now available through the state agencies. FWC is one. And to follow those good practices is a really important step to keeping yourself protected and safe.
Okay, great. Don't step on shit. Don't drink the water. There you go. Let's keep it moving.
The fraud in California, New York, and Illinois is far greater than in Minnesota. My guess for how much fraud is happening nationwide is roughly 10% of the federal budget. So about $700 billion per year.
Woo!
Let's take a look at this clip. with
Woof,
Nick
that's
Shirley.
a lot of money.
There's a lot of fraud happening here in Minnesota. You've been living here for years now. How bad is this fraud?
So I was born in Minneapolis a long time ago. I've lived my whole life here. And
you were born in what, 50?
My opinion is that
maybe
this
55?
is the worst fraud in human history. What is occurring in Minnesota and more specifically in the Twin Cities right now?
How much money do you think has been sent around fraudulently here inside Minnesota?
Over the years, I would say anywhere from 80 to 100 billion dollars.
And right now, the big controversy is with Tim Walz and his government and the fraud that they've allowed to happen within the Somalian community. Right behind us is Cedar Riverside, a location where it is very densely populated with Somalians. How have Somalians gotten into the system to fraud?
Because they brought them in here.
Well, so that complex you're seeing behind there, I attended the University of Minnesota, and in the area we're on right now, this is the West Bank, and it was always called the West Bank, and it was sort of the place to be when you're in college, and that was all student housing, 100%. That building you see in the background, it's now 100% Somali. And I can tell you confidently, they don't pay for their housing, they don't pay for their food, they don't pay for their vehicles. And on top of that, they have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of fraudulent companies set up, and they're sucking billions of dollars out of the state of Minnesota.
And how are they sucking billions
And
of dollars out of the state of Minnesota?
not getting in trouble. Well, one example would be with the hundreds of child care facilities that they have set up. And on every one that I visited, and I've been to maybe 100 of them or more, I never, ever have seen one child at any facilities ever over the past 7 years, 8 years.
What are the businesses that are being used to fraud the taxpayer here in Minnesota? You have the daycares. What are all of them?
So you have, you have child care, you have adult daycare, you have in-home health care, you have straight health care, and nobody really knows how that's defined. And then you have transportation, non-emergency medical transportation. And if you do a search, you'll see that the state of Minnesota says they have 1,020 non-emergency medical transportation companies. And my research is showing that 95% of those are Somali owned. And what I know is that the people writing the checks at the state of Minnesota never, ever, ever verify that any trip was ever made or that any appointment was ever made with a dentist, chiropractor, or anything.
Wow.
This is insane, guys. This is insane. When I tell you this isn't a oopsie, this isn't improper oversight, none of that, guys. This is purposeful fraud on the American people. But this is what they want. They want to have our country invaded. They want us depressed, broke, struggling, all while they give away all of our hard-earned tax dollars away to foreign nationals, illegals, immigrants, and then also sending it back to Somalia. More than the GDP of Somalia has been sent back from our taxpayer dollars, sent back to Somalia. And it's also funding terrorist groups. Guys, and it's all over the country is what I've been telling you. But let's continue with this. It says, holy crap, Nick Shirley and David just confirmed that one Somali collects mail-in ballots for the entire complexes, up to 9 ballots per apartment home, and send them in for Democrats. The voter fraud is massive. I've talked to you guys about the voter fraud that has been uncovered with the Somalis.
Oh,
they
Lord.
all vote together,
We gotta get
and
'em
there's
out.
ballot harvesting. You're talking probably 100,000
Why
or more.
can't we not
what?
get
Instead of
'em
me
out?
reading it, let's just play this. This is more of this interview.
Involved here, and it's way beyond anybody's imagination, the total amount. The state doesn't even know. The feds don't even know.
And so, for instance, why would that judge bow down to the head of the Somali mafia here?
What I can tell you is that it's a voting bloc, and what they say is if you do something to go against our community, we're going to vote for, and they all vote together, and there's ballot harvesting, I've seen them do it, that we're going to vote for your opponent unless you do what we tell you to do.
And so is it all purely for votes?
Yes.
And so this building right here, Cedar Riverside, major, massive apartment complex. How many Somalians do you think live in there, for instance?
Well, this is just one complex. You've got 20 more just like this around the Twin Cities, and they're all Somali. You're talking probably 100,000 or more people, and they're all living rent-free. They're driving a vehicle that you paid for. They're eating food that you paid for.
All
Everything
the taxpayers are
they
paying
do
for it.
is something that you paid for.
No.
And for instance, that entire block
How do we get
will then
into
go and
a
vote
scheme
for
like
one
that?
specific candidate.
They'll have one person go there.
You get brand new
and collect
cars,
all the
brand-
ballots,
all food
and nobody
paid
tracks.
for, home
They could
paid
say they have
for,
9 people living
all
in an
your
apartment.
clothes,
They're going to send
everything's
them
all
9
paid
ballots.
for by the
And then
taxpayers.
They have someone
Isn't
who
that
comes
fucking
along,
crazy?
collects all the ballots, and
And now in Minnesota, ICE is now on the ground there, which I think I'm gonna do a separate video, which is great that they're there. But it says breaking: DHS agents are now on the ground here in Minneapolis, going door to door at Somali care centers, because it's not just daycare like they said. They're conducting spot audits to find out exactly where the money went. We might be
Good.
seeing some Somali fraud arrests by DHS today. Well,
We
we
need
can
more.
be hopeful, and let's be honest. This go.
We need more
I want
agents.
the Somali stopped. I want them arrested, but we have to get to these evil, demonic, corrupt officials, politicians who have allowed this to go on for decades at this point, unchecked. And we're talking about fraud in every part of life. It's disgusting. But like I told you, we are living in dark times. We have to be thankful that God is allowing us to see all of these deceptions in real time, that we are seeing these things. We've seen a lot before, but I feel like now it is a completely different thing. We're blowing the lid off of the biggest scandals that we can imagine that are going on in this country. But let's take a look here.
The ground, they say they see these daycare centers, adult daycare centers, autism centers, home healthcare centers, all over the place. So that's why DHS has to be here, Dana, to knock on these doors and say, you've received this much money. What'd you do with it? So we'll keep an eye on it.
Okay, glad you're there. Thank you, Alexis.
So this the ground, they say they see these daycare.
So not too much there, but guys, remember I told you it's not just the Somalis. It's not just Minnesota, as we know.
It's all around.
Look at this.
They're all over.
Must be the trend for an easy money scam. Iranian daycare in California, 42.18 million. Guy is driving a Rolls Royce. No kids have been there in 9
He's driving
months.
a Rolls Royce.
This is.
How is he's driving a Rolls Royce?
That's assault. Don't touch me. Ever since Nick Shirley has done his reporting in Minnesota, we have Iranian daycare centers in
Well, if he
California.
was
Over here we
like
have
that, I would've
1412 South
fucked him
Crescent
up.
Heights, Creative Children Academy. Nobody has come in or out of this
I'll
facility
tell you
in
right
9
now,
months. Every
I
window
aim
is
for the
just
dick.
boarded up, tinted or barred. Look at this jump sheet.
I ain't gonna hit your face.
Jam
I'm
sheet.
gonna hit your fucking dick.
How did you get? Where's the money,
Punch it
jump
so
sheet? Where
hard,
did you
you're
get
gonna fall on
$3.2
your
million
fucking
for just one
ass.
facility? Where'd you get this car from? How did you get property? Yeah, did you win the lot?
That's assault. Don't touch me. Don't touch me.
Jump
That's
sheet.
assault.
The children.
Right there, I would have punched him right in
Where
his
are they?
face.
I don't.
Where are the children?
In or out?
I would have super kicked him right in the fucking face. Look at that piece of shit.
Oh look, he's handicapped.
Nah, he's handicapped.
How did you get?
Can you read English? Is a certificate for daycare center. This is Amber, California.
That's a certificate of a daycare center.
Doesn't look like the emblem.
So that makes it okay for him
the Bay Area
to
and Southern
get
California.
$42 million.
I know what they're doing.
The most money you've.
I know what you're
donated
doing.
to Karen Bass's government. $4.2 million just to her campaign, electoral campaign alone.
You guys are like influencing. He's trying to be lawyer, having a binder. Go back to your cockroach office.
I'm just a concerned citizen, and I want to understand how did you get
California? Go for the.
Don't touch me. I don't know what that means.
What the fuck?
Carefully, I think he's revving up the car.
Don't run, jump
The money
sheet.
jump sheet. $40.8 million.
Keep coming back.
No, how did
What
you
do you
get?
want
You have
from
a
me?
property company.
I have family. I have children. I just have the business. I go open it at the office. They give you a certificate, and that's it.
You have a nice watch too.
How did you get the watch and the car? Did you win the lottery, or are you making $1.2 million
I don't understand you.
Center?
I don't
Open and close a
understand
new
you.
child daycare
Don't
center at
run.
this location alone every year for 2
Don't run.
Opportunity
Yo.
is why I came to America. Come here, look at this. You think it's cheap to bring a building up to code for opening a daycare?
Oh,
I'd rather buy
Lord.
4 more
Here
of
we
these
go.
ones. Look at this. This is the
car, right?
Rolls Royce American car. Come here. But I have to install what I have to install to become the next generational wealth person in my family. Look, our
What
floor
the
was
hell?
falling through into the sewer, so we had to cut
That so
take out the soil.
42.18 million in grants, and this is what he's
This
doing.
is not over, and we need to follow Jamshid and this entire Iranian fraud that is going on here in California.
This is a lot of fraud going on, man.
You want to put that aside. You want to put that aside.
I don't know what that means.
Guys, this almost looks like a skit, but it's not. Like it's so
What is going
ridiculous.
on?
But this guy has gotten $42.18 million in grant money and
Whoa.
$2 million kicked back to Karen Bass's campaign.
Yo, I'm gonna start playing.
You
for
cannot
grants.
make this up.
Fuck that shit.
But look at this again. It's not just them, not just the Somalis or
If I
the
could
Iranians.
come out with
Okay,
$42
federal
million
prosecutors just blew the lid
and the
off
guy
of a
ain't doing
$7
shit.
million
I could do something
SNAP
with the
fraud
42
scheme in
million
Boston.
and
Two
help
Haitian
the
nationals
community
have been charged
and
for
help
running
people.
so-called ghost stores, tiny shops with
God,
barely
man.
any inventory that were
I'm
somehow
tired of these
cashing
fuckers, man.
$540,000 a month in EBT. Let that sink in. That's 6
$40,000
times the SNAP
EBT.
volume of a real fully stocked supermarket. The stores were allegedly used to trade EBT for cash and illegal items, draining taxpayer funds at an insane scale. This wasn't a corner store hustle. This was an industrial level fraud, and people still wonder where the money goes.
No.
We are announcing federal charges against 2 men, Antonio Bonner and Saul Elisme, for large-scale SNAP benefit trafficking, a scheme that turned a program designed to feed families into a multi-million-dollar criminal enterprise. SNAP benefits are also known as food stamps. The defendants are charged with 1 count of food stamp fraud. As alleged in the charging documents, these men abused one of the government's most critical safety net programs for their own financial gain. This is taxpayer money meant to keep people from going hungry. These defendants decided to take it for themselves. These defendants exchanged SNAP benefits for cash, which they pocketed. Bonner, a naturalized U.S. citizen from Haiti, owned the Jesuela Variety Store. Elisme, a lawful permanent resident also from Haiti, owned the Saul Mache Mixe store. These 2 businesses were co-located within a single storefront in Boston. To be certain, these were not supermarkets. They were not full-service groceries. It would be a huge stretch to even call them convenience stores. In fact, the only thing convenient about these stores was how easy it was to commit SNAP benefit fraud. To put this in perspective, the Jesuela Variety Store is less than 150 square feet in size, smaller than some bathrooms. The Saul Mache Mixe store
So
was
it's a small
approximately
little area.
500 square feet in space. By contrast, a supermarket can be 20,000 to 60,000 square feet in size, have a dozen or more registers, and employ numerous employees. Both the Jesuela Variety and Saul Mache Mixe stores had 1 register, no carriages, no hand baskets, and very little food for sale.
Wow.
One legitimate supermarket in the same area as these stores redeems approximately $80,000 in SNAP benefits per month. Over the last 20 months, the Jesuela Variety Store was redeeming between 3 and 6 times that amount monthly, with nowhere near the space, inventory, customers, or infrastructure to support it. The Saul Mache Mixe store redeemed over $120,000 in SNAP benefits in the last 6 months.
Oh my
Simply
God.
put, there is no plausible way SNAP eligible food could have been purchased from these stores for this long. Yet,
Yeah, they
these
have no
2
food in
stores
there.
are alleged to have illicitly trafficked nearly $7 million in SNAP benefits.
Guys, it was one of these stores was 150 square feet, the
That's
size
small.
of a bathroom.
Yeah.
Yet
I was
it
looking
did
like
more volume in
this little space
SNAP
right here.
than a 20 to 30,000
My
square foot
room.
grocery store.
My room is like how many
You
spots
cannot make
would
it
that be?
up, but
Like
oh
one,
no,
two,
it gets
3,
crazier.
4,
Truth
5,
is
6,
stranger than
7,
fiction.
8. You can
HHS
put 8
confirmed
of those little
Somalia's
stores in my
UN
bedroom.
ambassador was involved in a healthcare company convicted of Medicaid fraud. Somalia's UN ambassador, guys. It is not a rumor anymore. It's confirmed. The Department of Health and Human Services has verified reporting that Abukar Dahir Osman, Somalia's ambassador to the United Nations, was involved in a healthcare company convicted of Medicaid fraud. His company's NPI appears on the HHS Office of Inspector General's exclusion list under code 1128A1, meaning conviction of program-related crimes with a mandatory minimum 5-year exclusion from Medicare and Medicaid.
Wow.
This is the same man who just assumed the rotating presidency of the UN Security Council on January 1st.
What?
He now has authority to set the global agenda, oversee international peacekeeping operations, and authorize UN military actions, which the UN is like condemning what happened with Venezuela and demands the return of Maduro, the dictator who tortured, kidnapped, and maimed his own people for over a decade.
That's crazy.
What? He now has authority to set the okay, I already said that. His background reportedly worked as a supervisor at the Medicaid office in Franklin County, Ohio, listed as a daycare administrator in the state, connected to a healthcare company convicted of defrauding American taxpayers. The same pattern: Medicaid, daycares, Somali networks, fraud convictions, except this one didn't just cash out and disappear. He became a diplomat with immunity, presiding over global security.
Wow. You can't get in trouble.
What are we doing? Guys, we are in the upside down.
Yes, we are.
We are in the upside down. I have so much more to show you.
This.
Probably gonna have to put. I'm gonna have to do it in another video. There's so much that's coming out.
I know,
But I just want to. I'm not gonna play this whole thing because it's just it's gonna be a lot. It's a long clip. But it says Somali man in Ohio says America will become a Muslim state. Our goal is to make America Islamic. I've told you that's their goal.
Islam's coming to America. Islam's coming to America? Yes, it's coming. Wait, is this going to be one day America will become a Muslim state, a Muslim country. Our goal is to make America Islam. Islamic state.
That's how they're infiltrating. And they're multiplying by having babies.
Yeah, it's almost 5 minutes, this video. So I'm not going to play the whole thing, but at least they put that in the beginning so we can see what was being said by this Somali. And this is what they all feel. This is what all of these Muslims feel, that America must become an Islamic state. And I want you to notice the attack on Christianity, not just in our country, but around the world, and that nobody cares about. Nobody cares about it. The UN does nothing. Other governments do nothing. So finally, when we do something about it, well, it's a problem. It's a problem. And guys, I'm telling you, this is what our world has come to. There is a full out assault on those who believe in Jesus Christ, from financially, legally, globally, like you name it. This is what we're in. And this is why I know we are in the last days. So guys, make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell.
Scary.
I will see you on the next
one. It's scary. We're going to catch another show from you in a bit. Let me come back to me. How y'all feel about that? Like, honestly, because they're here and they are like multiplying like gremlins. Have you seen the movie Gremlins? All it took was a little bit of water and they were just popping like little gremlins everywhere. That's what's happening. And they're going to fight us strength by numbers. And these individuals are able to buy guns and have the protection of the Second Amendment. Like our Constitution now is going to be protecting these people, the people that are going to be killing us. Man, we are in the upside down. I talked about this upside down for many years, and I felt like it happened when the day I died. When I died and was worked really hard to bring me back alive, I think that's when like everything flipped for me, and everything that I've been witnessing has been coming to me. Mostly I the mask has been helping a lot to open up everything, to expose everything, and it's making me see all this stuff, and I'm happy to see it. It's pretty scary, that's for sure. It's like this everything that's going on is very like frightening, and it's gonna be a dangerous year this year because they're gonna fight back, and we're gonna have to fight back with them. You know, and it's not no discrimination. There's no discrimination because the black people feel the same way too, and the white people feel the same way. The Puerto Rican people, the Dominican people, the all of us feel the same way about the Somalis. They came here and they corrupt. They freaking stole so much money. They're getting paid to take care of their family's children. Just like, yeah, I'll take care of your children. I open business, LLC. Okay, I'll do that online. Oh, look, I get my license. La, 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 la. I got my license. La, la, la. Okay, I get to take care of how many children? Oh, you only got 2? They approved me for 99 children. La, 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 la. We're going to share 99 children. We're going to get paid. La, 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 la. And that's what happens. And the stupidity of the United States will pay that bill, you know, and cough up that money. And then we lose that money because once it's in their hands, they send that shit right back to their country, and it goes right to the terroristic groups that are funding their weapons, funneling so much. And the fact that this scheme has been going on, they know the transactions. The United States is not stupid. You think they're stupid? You think they don't know? They know. They know every transaction that leaves the United States. They know every single penny that leaves this country and goes to certain places. They know. So they know what the Somalis are doing. The fact is that the point, like disappointedness, I feel, is why did it take so long to get them exposed? Because this has been happening for decades. And you think Minnesota is bad? Okay, yeah. I got you so much bridges to sell you here in Connecticut if you believe Minnesota is like the capital of fraud. No, they're not. They are a problem, yes, but maybe a nuisance, yes, but not the real problem. The real problem? California, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut. I could go and name all my states. We'll go to Washington, Oregon. I already mentioned California, Colorado. You know, you got a lot of states that have really high usage of these supposedly, you know, food stamps and housing and so forth were set up for people that are in need, people that are disabled and not able to go to work and provide. So they offer this money to help you, to supplement you, to get you through your life and to help you with life. Because as hard as it is living fucked up and living disabled, and you know, you can't go and do what the fuck you truly want. Because if I was really fucking good health, oh my god, I'd be bringing in like easy $2,000 a week doing the jobs that I was doing. You know, but when you get disabled, you're fucked. You know, and you have all these hopes and inspirations, but you're trapped. You're trapped, and it's not the system that has you trapped, it's your body. You know, once you don't pay attention to your body and you don't care for your body as much, but when something really truly bad happens to your body and your body pretty much gives up on you, then you got to drag your body around, and like your half your body doesn't want to like go, but you have to go. That's the battle I deal with every day. But that is what it is. Let's see what else we got here. Oh fuck, we got Tim Watts. Oh, can't stand this dude. I really can't stand him.
Any minute now, Minnesota Democratic Governor Tim Walz will answer questions about his decision to end his re-election campaign. He broke the news yesterday after weeks of the feds turning the screws on his state in the wake of a multi-billion-dollar fraud scheme. He claims he's been hard at work addressing the fraud since it was discovered years ago, prompting critics to ask if he was trying to stop it, then how did it spiral out of control? The Washington Post editorial board writing this: Walz has insisted that he was focused all along on cleaning up fraud. If that's true, he's really bad at cleaning up fraud because the problem exploded under his governorship. Hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Emily Compagno here with my co-host, Harris Faulkner. And also joining us today, Rosanna Scotto, Fox 5 New York anchor and host of The Underground Economy on Fox Nation, Lisa Booth, Fox News political analyst, and Paul Morrow, attorney, retired NYPD inspector, and Fox News contributor. Now, Governor Walz blamed Republicans for the situation yesterday. Watch.
If Republicans continue down the path of abusing power,
This
sharing
guy's
entire
an idiot.
communities, and running their own fraudulent game at the expense of Minnesotans,
Look at the flag.
I will fight back.
Is that a Somali flag?
Minnesota has always come first, and
Why do we have
always
a Somali
focused
flag
on making sure that we stay
in Minnesota?
America's best place to live and raise kids. No one will take that away from us.
The White House press secretary Caroline Leavitt says Trump believes Walz could be criminally liable.
President Trump has been calling out Tim Walz for his incompetence and corrupt leadership for a very long time. And Trump was right about everything. This is another example of that, which is why Governor Walz is dropping out of the race for re-election today. This is a man who can no longer even win the support of the voters within his home state because his policies have failed them.
Now, welfare fraud isn't just a problem in Minnesota. It's been thrust into the national spotlight. A former WWE wrestler has been indicted in the Mississippi welfare fraud scandal, accused of embezzling almost $4 million in state welfare funds. The case is part of a much larger fraud investigation. The Trump administration is sending a clear message aimed at stopping similar schemes, freezing $10 billion in funding to 5 blue states over fears of childcare and social services fraud. Paul Morrow, a lot to unpack. My question to start out with you is, have we seen the worst of it, or is the worst yet to come?
Worse is yet to come, because once you get into the discovery, you start pulling all the paperwork and so on, you start to see what really went on, and it's always ugly when you see how the sausage was made. Let's make a couple of distinctions here. First of all, my understanding is right now 16 federal investigations ongoing, including some that were begun well before this story broke, all right? Let's make this distinction relative to Minnesota. If you look at who's been investigating, and I want to be fair here, the DOJ under Biden was investigating this. In fact, the U.S. Attorney for Minnesota came out and said at one point, we have a fraud problem here in Minnesota. What's the distinction? Well, the feds were investigating. Who was not investigating? The state, the people that were closest to it, who should have had a better window into it. Walz, Keith Ellison, the Attorney General. The Attorney Generals love to say, I'm the top law enforcement agent in my state. But when it comes to law enforcement, they don't do anything. Why was the state complicit or incompetent when the feds actually went at it? Because the state were the people who had the most to gain, because they wanted the Somali votes. So as a result, they let all of this happen, again, either complicit or incompetent. Walz It's the only way he's going to be criminally liable, in my estimation, is if you see somehow or other he got some sort of a donation because he looked the other way. Otherwise, it's going to be tough to bring criminal charges. You can have an intent issue. But Ellison met with the Feeding Our Future people. They were not to be indicted yet, but they were under investigation. And he let that skate. He said, I'm siding with you guys. They were later indicted. And by the way, he got, I think it's $15,000 to $20,000 donations from that group in the subsequent 2 weeks, including money that went to his son, who was running for the assembly up there, the local, assembly that governs St. Paul, Minneapolis. My point is, when you start to see that sort of tit for tat, it's an allegation. That's all it is. That has to be looked at. I spoke to Bill Glahn, who is a fellow at the Center for the American Experiment in Minnesota. He worked for Palenti. He had a window. He's the guy who found
I can't wait till they
tape.
arrest his
There's an
ass.
audio tape of that meeting, and
That's
he
what
put
I'm
it
waiting
out. Nobody
for.
else was interested. I had him on my podcast. I don't do this too much when I talk about it. The ops desk. I'm going to drop it this week. He laid it all out. Ellison's got trouble.
I think part of the reason, Harris, that everything is so shocking, too, is because of how obvious it was and how now as we're learning how much whistleblowing was being ignored. We have a shot we'll play for you right now. It's Nick Shirley calling out the hypocrisy of the so-called learning centers. They can't even get the title right. Let's watch.
Quality Learning Center. This is the meme that has gone totally viral. And I mean, clearly it's because of the hypocrisy. You have a daycare that's receiving millions of dollars of taxpayer funds, federal funds, and they can't even spell learning right there.
Their logic has been literally broken. And if you ask them, well, you're supporting $1.9 million going to this daycare and they can't even spell learning right, she just looks you stone cold in the face and has no response because she knows she can't justify it, but she has to keep yelling just to keep going to convince herself that she's doing the right thing.
And you can catch that full episode tomorrow with Riley Gaines' new podcast. But Harris, he's absolutely right. It's egregious.
Okay, it's also everywhere. For some reason, my 16-year-old's algorithms brought up that on the tail end of our vision. She said, Mom, those people where you used to work and cover them on the news when they were breaking the law in Minnesota can't spell learning. I'm like, where are you getting this from? No, it's everywhere. And because it is, what you said is so right. So Chairman Comer of the House Oversight last hour told me that their focus is on Keith Ellison.
Oh, did he say that?
Yeah, he said that. And I then said, well, Walsh can run, but he can't take everybody with him. Right, because he can't protect any of the people who are left behind. But apparently there is so much going on with that trail with Ellison and others as well in that state that Comer feels like this could go on for quite some time. And their focus from a congressional standpoint will be clawing back some of the money. I mean, people were ripped off so much. Is any of it still gettable? So that will be part of it. But yeah, this whole part about the ineptitude and how sloppy they were, and are the papers out there? Did somebody take them? Can we get any of the... You got it on tape, and I didn't know you had a podcast, but I'm watching it.
It was really revelatory, I tell you. And by the way,
Your podcast, no doubt.
A lot of the money, crypto. They knew how to hide it.
Oh, right, of course.
Yeah, Glahn told me that as well.
But Congress is on it.
But here's the thing politically. Governor Tim Walz got fried under the national spotlight. Because I've worked in statewide campaigns in a lot of these states, particularly if you look at some of these, left-leaning purple states, and you think the mainstream media is bad when it comes to bias. Get to some of these more liberal states, and particularly liberal media markets like the Minneapolis, St. Paul area media market in the state of Minnesota. They protect the liberal governor there. So Governor Walz has been protected. I mean, a lot of these audits were flagged predating Governor Walz's time as governor, but as soon as Kamala Harris picked him as the VP, that was the demise and the end of his political career. Because what also came under scrutiny was his handling of the George Floyd riots. The fact that there was $500 million worth of damage in the state of Minnesota. You have 1,500 properties damaged, that he allowed a police precinct to be overrun. His stolen valor, all those different things that he had lied about as well. And then now this fraud scandal as well. So this was the demise, the national spotlight, when people started paying attention to what he was doing. Also, we're talking about different buckets of fraud as well. You've got the Feeding Our Future fraud, you've got the Medicaid fraud, the housing fraud, the child care fraud. So I think this, his decision to not run for re-election, clearly legal culpability there. and then just realizing that this is the end of the road for him as this continues.
Rosanna, what do you
I was
think?
just thinking Minneapolis has hit after hit coming after it. I mean, now the Wall Street Journal is talking about what happened with ICE agents, right?
That's right.
The president of the United States talking about now sending in ICE agents to do a little bit more investigative work. And then you find out this hotel in Lakeville decides that on their own, they're not going to allow the ICE agents to stay there. They have documentation. They share it with everybody. Hilton is now coming out with a statement saying, hey, this is a franchise. It's not us. But, you know, the bottom line is
their franchise.
It's their franchise. And usually those people are groomed. There is somebody over them to kind of keep an eye on how things go. It's their name. And I'm in the hospitality business. Besides being a news person on here and on Good Day New York, my family has a restaurant. And hospitality, I mean, you can't, decide who's coming in your place and who's not. Discriminate against somebody who's coming in your place. Hospitality is hospitality. Now they're saying they're blaming it on one person in the front who decided to go rogue and not let these people in. But the bottom line is the Hilton chain, because social media is all over this, going to have a Bud Light problem? You know, how do they get around this? I mean, Minneapolis has really got one problem after another.
A lot of people, a lot of Republicans, they have money.
All right, we are not the people.
And the Hiltons,
all right, so
a lot of people like to stay at the Hilton.
People are very mad. The adults.
A lot of these Republicans, if they stop going to the Hilton, it's going to hurt their bottom
this
line.
idea, and I kicked out
That
the word
was a stupid move
discrimination.
by
I know with
Hilton.
businesses, if you put a sign up somehow that can indemnify you from something. But who wants to put up a sign that says we don't
got to
want to
read the
support federal
room. Your
workers in this
clientele, you got to know your
environment?
clients.
I don't know. What's your take?
Somebody's going to get fired here. They're going to blame it on some rogue employee who sent out that email, and somebody will go and they'll back off of it. If it was an institutional decision, which I don't assess from Hilton, they're going to push it over to the franchise, and I have a feeling that place is going to be called something different soon.
Yeah, they take the name away.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno.
That's what they do.
Catch me
No,
and my co-host Harris Faulkner and Kaylee Metcalf.
The federal government will go after them and pretty much shut the damn place down. They'll have to change the name. Hilton will be like, no, we don't want to do this with these fuckers anymore. You guys, we're reneging our contract and so forth, and they're gonna have to find another name of an establishment where it's not owned by Hilton to, take up the hotel. I don't know. That's just such a fucking weird experience. Like, why would they act the way they act? Listen, those are ICE agents. They're police officers. They're officers. They're not really officers. They're agents. There are official agents. And they're going after the worst of the worst. But if they come with collateral and there's others that are illegal, and like if Juanito is hanging with Pepe and Pepe's like, oh, I don't have Pepe. Oh, guess what? Pepe, you're going to fucking jail too. That's collateral damage. Okay. Let's keep it moving. Let's see what else we have. Ooh, liberal hive mind. I like. Let me set it up because the sound isn't working like usual. Can't stand StreamYard. I just do my daily rip on them. Here we go.
Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. And of course, here's your meme of the day, brought to you by 5mind.com. Well, friends, it appears as though we were right. It seems like my theory about these Somali daycare scams was right on the money. It's basically a state-funded, glorified babysitting program. Of course, then turned into a billion-dollar fraud bonanza with entitled scammers turning into millionaires overnight. They're setting up these operations and not actually admitting children. There's no real child enrollment. That's probably why they're faking these scenarios with their child enrollment documents being stolen, because there actually are no kids. They're not admitting the public's children and actually providing a service to the people. No, they're just babysitting their own kids and pretending as if they've got a daycare going on. American taxpayers are basically funding Somali stay-at-home stay-at-home moms. And it would be one thing if it was a small little payment, just a little subsidy to help with your personal childcare needs. But no, in this case, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars per kid, pretending as if you're taking care of 50, but really you've got 3, 4, 5. This is overt fraud. It's theft on a mass scale. And we were absolutely right about the nature of these scams. I got some news segments to show you guys here, and they're basically saying, they're confirming exactly what we've been saying. This is undoubtedly exactly what's going on. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, I want to start off with this little piece over here. Here's a news expose on the Sunshine Child Care Center that allegedly pulled in more than $9 million in taxpayer grants. And of course, it's the same story. They were licensed for 48 children, but all they were doing was babysitting their own kids.
Sunshine Child Care Center was located in a building behind the storefront on Lake Street. According to BCA reports, Sunshine had received more than $9 million in taxpayer-funded child care assistance program money since it was first licensed to serve up to 48 children 11 years earlier. In a DHS investigator referred the case to the BCA because they suspected fraud.
The initial tip claimed that the owner, Falsia Hassan, would only hire employees who had 5 or more children. This kind of allegation is known to investigators, where mothers will essentially watch their own children at a daycare and get paid with taxpayer money. But investigators here also claim to find evidence of overbilling.
According to the police reports, the daycare claimed to serve twice as many kids as it actually did while being surveilled.
They were specifically looking for families, for mothers who had more than 5 children, which of course in the Muslim community is most of them. And they were hiring those people alone, likely giving them kickbacks. Then they had a commercial operation set up to basically babysit their own children, and they were milking the state for everything they could get. In this case, $9 million in the span
so every
of roughly
time this
10
happens,
years,
it's like a stab in my heart.
That's the scam. And you know what? That's not even the worst one, because in this case, at least they had some kids around. They were hiring women with all these children and then kind of collecting all the children under one roof. And I'm not saying that to defend it. I'm just saying it's not as blatant as the other scams, where it's one family that's listed to have a capacity and, whatever the number is, let's say an arbitrary number of 50, and instead they're just babysitting their own children. Yeah, some scammers took it to a whole other level. And actually, Cam Higbee released a piece where he did an investigation on a so-called daycare center. And this was one of those daycare operations that was happening in someone's personal residential home. And well, take a look.
My decoy and I went to Aisha Home Child Care in Kent, Washington, and she got inside. A corresponding page for Aisha Home Child Care on the state expenditure website indicates that this place has raked in $753,053 since 2022. We matched the address on the business card given to us with records for an Aisha Home Child Care on the Department of Children, Youth, and Families website for Washington State. The DCYF indicates that this place only serves 2 children. Their licensed capacity is 12, and they have 10 available slots, reflecting this place only babysits 2 kids. On the inside, my decoy did see children. There was a small room inside of this person's house that was outfitted to look like a daycare. My decoy indicated that these children looked like they very well could have just been the person who was living there's children. The owner took a while to answer the door. My decoy said she heard rustling, children crying, and then when she walked in, there were the children. She told me that not a single toy was out of place. This wasn't as if these children were just playing with toys and at daycare. It seemed that they were just placed in that room because there was a visitor.
They got in, and of course it's set up like a daycare, but there were only 2 kids there, and it looked as if it was just the mom who lived there and her 2 kids, pretending it's a legitimate daycare. I mean, by that definition, every family home is a daycare that is now entitled to what, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in taxpayer funds. Absolutely insane. And again, what an insult to the people who are struggling with childcare costs. These people are milking the system, but not only that, they're making these problems worse. And again, it goes to show that government just can't get anything right. Government can't do anything right. The left will tell you the reason daycare is so expensive is because of, late stage capitalism. It's capitalism's fault. But for some reason, I just feel like if we remove the element of government, put the money in people's hands, allow people to make private businesses, I feel like daycare costs would likely go down. And you know what? You probably wouldn't be funding billions of dollars of freaking Somali daycare scams. It's a complete slap in the face. And what I keep thinking about is imagine what you could actually do with the money. This is money that's being burnt, that's being wasted. arrested. And the numbers are staggering. You know, the left wants to downplay the level of fraud. They claim the headline numbers, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars in scams, billions of dollars across all these different programs. They say it's overblown. But I don't think it is, because when you look on an individual basis, the amount these Somali babysitters babysitting their own damn kids or their friends' kids, the amount that they're billing per child is absolutely insane.
Here we have an organization called Amira Childcare donating $1,000 cash in 2021 to Shukri Alo, who is a Somalian-born King County political candidate. If we go over to the Department of Children, Youth, and Families, we can find Amira Childcare LLC, which seems to match with the organization that donated, owned by Ahmed Amira. So we go into the records. Of course, one of the primary languages spoken is Somali. We go over to the state expenditure website, and what we'll find is that you can't find any subsidies given to Amira Childcare in the biennium of 2021 to 2023, which is the same that donation was made. You can find somebody by the name of Ahmed Amira Abdi I, which is seemingly the same name as the person who owns the organization minus the Abdi I, receiving $383,000. And I would wager to guess it's the same person, considering these grants, benefits, and client services are coming from the Department of Children, Youth, and Families. We go into the next biennium, which is 2023 to 2025, and Amira Childcare LLC actually does pop up, and they received $363,000 just in these handful of years. Go into the next biennium, which is 2025 to 2027. Just since July, this organization, Amira Childcare LLC, has received $355,000 just since July of 2025. What it appears to be to me, unless I'm a stupid person, is a childcare organization owned by a Somali person donating to Somali political candidates with taxpayer dollars. Okay, we go back to the records from the Department of Children, Youth, and Families. Their licensed capacity is 12, and they have 5 available slots. They're not at max capacity. According to the DCYF, this organization currently has a maximum of 7 children enrolled. So if we go to the most recent biennium and we just look at the most recent payment, which is $68,016, that would mean that this organization is receiving $9,700 per month per child. In some months, it's even more.
That's $68,000 to $81,000 a month for 7 children. Multiply that on a wide scale across these scams and across multiple different government-funded programs across various states, and you are in the billions of dollars. 100%. And it's no wonder Democrats are defending this. The money's then getting politically donated to Democrats, or at least certain chunks of it. Anyways, I guess to conclude, it appears as though we were right about pretty much everything. Once again, the left said that we were lying. It was a racist political campaign, more MAGA extremism, whatever the hell they were saying. But it turns out, once again, we were right about everything. Anyways, that's what I got for you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
All right. Let's see what we got in the next one here. Ooh. It's Mendy King. It's right back to Mendy. Let's see what's up.
Walz replaced the Minnesota state flag with the Somalia flag.
Oh, just explain that.
Deserves the name Trader Tim. Put the flag back. Let me play this. I just don't even know. But Tim Walz did not drop out of the Minnesota governor's race because of the Somali fraud that we know about publicly. He dropped out because more fraud is coming. He's panicked. It's billions of dollars, maybe
crazy.
Even tens of billions. Generational theft and betrayal.
Idiot.
Guys, I
Bring
just
back the
exposed
flag.
that they believe all of the fraud,
Look what he
guys,
did.
that adds up in the United States, that these illegals and migrants and all of the welfare fraud, that it equals up to $700 billion a year. Yes, guys, not total. $700 billion a year. When I told you trillions have been stolen from the American tax dollars throughout, if you add up all the years, it's insane. I cannot believe we are living in a time where this massive level of fraud is finally being exposed. But yeah, look at this demonic entity here.
All right, ready. Whoa, wait a minute.
The fuck? What a weirdo.
There, that's better. All right,
There,
wait.
that's
Whoa, wait
better.
a minute.
What a fucking insult.
Really? Look at this. Minnesota isn't the only one changing its flag. Why are cities and states across America adopting the same 8-point star, a symbol prominent in Islam? What are the odds? Guys, this is...
I don't know about you, but I'm actually really happy Elon Musk is finally talking about this, but there is so much more to this story. Put the Minnesota flag back, he says. But Americans need to pay attention to this. The flag features an 8-point star, a symbol prominent in Islam, and we're seeing it show up in flags all across the nation. The original Minnesota flag was replaced with a flag that resembles the flag of Somalia, a flat blue design with that 8-point star. Now, this is the same flag that Jackie Toberoff and I have been reporting on for almost 2 years now. Minnesota's original flag, there was nothing wrong with it, reflected the history of the land, a Native American on horseback, and a farmer. Now, this, of course, comes on the heels of Minnesota's massive fraud scandal, so now people are starting to pay attention to this flag, which is great. But Americans need to understand, again, this isn't just happening in Minnesota. Take a look at Reno, Nevada, before and after. Take notice, 8-point star. Look at Kent, Ohio, before and after. Now look at the city of Hutchinson in Kansas. They've actually scrubbed much of the internet of what the previous flag looked like, but it resembles their city seal. They said it was too basic. Now, Jacqueline Toberoff wrote an entire article in 2024 with all the links of the changes and then proposed flags as well. You can check it out. So what are the chances they all just happen to have this same 8-point star?
This is happening right before our eyes. And yet some will say, oh, no, this is no big deal. You're being racist, Islamophobic, all of that. They have said that that America will become an Islamic nation.
You're a xenophobe.
That Islam will enter every household.
What the fuck is a xenophobe?
They are going to, they have the infatata or infidata, whatever it's called, where basically they can do anything, including raping women and children, doing whatever they have to, killing you, beheading you, in order to force you to turn to Islam. And nothing's been done about it. Our politicians are welcoming them here with open arms and helping them create this massive fraud on the American people, on Christians. And they do not care. Says we finally found the Somali Education Resource Center. This organization has received $42 million.
Shit.
There's nothing here. There's no one inside.
I wish I had 42
Where
million.
is the money? That's all we wanted to know. The nicest part of this location was the security system on the door. 4 dead addresses, and this is what we found.
That's me here in the United States. So if they're spending that money overseas, imagine how much they
all right, guys. So we are here. We found it finally, all day long. The Somali Education Resource Center, Suite 301 here at 299 East Granville Road in Dublin, Ohio. Now, the deal is that $14 million into this center here. This is a single office. And by the way, there's nothing inside it. We've already looked. It is very, very, very much dark, and it looks like there's maybe a couch inside. So not anything here. Very nice security system, which I found very strange. So I assume that they probably have now taken our video and everything of us standing out here. But there is nothing here. And again, where's the money? That's the real question, because the organization is supposedly $42 million over the past few years in taxpayer funding, and we have no access, and we have no idea where it is. So we're just trying to ask some questions here, and we have yet to find anything at all. So we're going to keep looking, guys, but this is what we found so far.
$42 million?
All right, guys.
Oh my God, I would be.
So every day across the country, this fraud has been exposed. We know that Minnesota is the hotbed. It is ground zero, but it is in every state. But every time that they get confronted or approach, either it's, you can see clearly there's no one there, it's a fraudulent business, but then they also are getting very violent. So it says, holy smokes, Ohio Somali daycare worker just went berserk on a citizen journalist walking inside to ask where to sign up. So let's play this.
Get back! Get back! Get back!
What the hell?
Don't touch me! Get back!
Don't touch me!
Get
Don't
back!
touch
Get
me!
back! Get back! Get back!
What the hell?
You just touched me.
Well, he better call the cops.
Wait. Don't call the police.
See that?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh, call the cops.
So, the heck, what just happened?
He just freaking pushed me. I just walked in there and he just started pushing me and screaming, "Get back. I'm calling the police."
As you can see, folks, we had, all we did was go in. We were going to ask some questions. And we were attacked here at Jubba Daycare, 614-269-7042, right here in Columbus. All we did was walk in the door.
Columbus, Ohio.
All we did was walk in the door. You saw the man come out. He grabbed a hold of Mehek, tried pushing her. And that's how fast things happen. That's how screwed up this place is right now.
It's supposed to be a daycare.
Are
You're
all
not supposed to
about
be aggressive
being violent.
in the daycare.
We didn't do anything wrong. It's a business. It's right here.
That's not a legit business. That's not
Let's
legit.
look at this and then
I'm
I'll
sorry.
read what it says.
A new report has revealed that Joe Biden's HHS spent $22.6 billion in grants for migrants, covering cars, home loans,
Look at this.
cash, housing, healthcare, and even money to start up businesses, all funded by American taxpayers.
What?
According to the report, the Office of Refugee Resettlement funded billions to nonprofit organizations acting as
Wow,
a,
you
quote,
see?
giant magnet for illegal migrants,
Oh,
all while losing
my.
track of 32,000 migrant kids. More than $12 billion went to unaccompanied minors, even though reports exposed unvetted and abusive sponsors. A new report has revealed that Joe Biden's HHS.
What? 22.6 billion. 12 billion to unaccompanied minors, even though they had unvetted and abusive sponsors. Guys, let's read this. So reports show billions of American taxpayer dollars went to buying illegals homes and helping them start businesses. Isn't that great for them? We can barely afford our bills. We can't even purchase our home. We can barely afford our mortgage. People are having to put their grocery purchases on a credit card. But yet, the United States of America saw it fit to give mostly Muslim migrants, to give them billions of dollars so that they live, their entire life is free. They're getting free housing. They're getting cash. They're getting cars. They're getting free medical care. They're getting daycare vouchers, Section 8 housing. They're getting all of this. And on top of that, they're getting grants, meaning they don't have to pay this money back in order to start these fraudulent businesses. And it becomes a vicious cycle. A new report has revealed that Joe Biden's HHS spent $22.6 billion in grants for migrants, covering cars, home loans, cash, housing, healthcare, and even money to start up businesses, all funded by the American taxpayers. According to the report, the Office of Refugee Resettlement funded billions to nonprofit organizations acting as a giant magnet for illegal migrants, all while losing track of 32,000 migrant kids. More than $12 billion went to unaccompanied minors, even though reports exposed unvetted and abusive sponsors. I just had to read that over, even though some of that was said in the report, because I'm flabbergasted. But while that's going on, it says they're hiring kids now to pretend like their fake daycares are legit so that they can continue stealing our money. Guys, says search of child actors for daycare site where funding was crucial. This state being process. We are looking to hire 20 child actors for 3 days while state is present on site. $1,500 a day. They can pay $1,500 a day for these child actors.
What?
So that they can, guys, they're publicly putting this.
That's just expensive.
This is insane. This is insane. This is what they're doing. Because they are hiring child actors so they can continue the fraud. What world are we living in right now? Like, honestly, what world?
The upside down.
Now, President Trump put this out
We're in the
today.
upside down.
It's official. California is under full investigation by the Trump administration after up to $76.5 billion plus stolen from the taxpayer. California was always worse than Minnesota. Tim Walz's career was ended. Now it's time to end Gavin's. Let's play this. This is coming from President Trump.
his home state, saying under Governor Gavin Newsom's leadership, it has become the, quote, fraud capital of America.
And we have team coverage. Our national correspondent, Alana Austin, is on Capitol Hill with more on the investigations into Tim Walz. But we start with correspondent Heather Myers, who has more on what is going on in California. A rainy day out there on the West Coast. Heather, what can you tell us?
Well, good afternoon to you, Katrina and Andrew. This latest report was issued by the state auditor, and that's a nonpartisan position. That state auditor now puts 8 state agencies on a high-risk list of agencies to watch out for things like fraud and mismanagement, as well as waste. Here's a look at that 92-page report. Newly added to the high-risk list is California's food stamp program. If the state doesn't get the improper payments under control, it could cost an extra $2.5 billion. Also on there is the Department of Finance, which was tasked with giving out COVID relief funds. Critics say $32 billion of that was taken by fraudsters. Then there are infrastructure issues like California's deteriorating dams and also the high-speed train that's already cost taxpayers $18 billion without a single section of track complete. Other reports cite $24 billion spent on the homeless issue that critics claim the state lost track of. More recently, there's a report that says California cell phone users paid a surcharge for years to upgrade the state's 911 system. Here's Congressman Kevin Kiley talking about what happened to that plan.
That after spending $650 million on that system, the state is totally scrapping it and starting over, completely wasted the money because the technology doesn't work. Mind you, we are very close to Silicon Valley in Sacramento, and yet the government can't figure out how to make basic technology perform.
Now look at this. All right, guys, every second,
Sorry about the siren.
the idea that this has been happening for so long, and all of these lawmakers, all of these politicians and bureaucrats and officials, they knew all of this was happening. They just didn't care. They were in on it. They were been enriching themselves. How do you think they're worth millions of dollars today? These people don't own businesses, these politicians. It's in between insider trading and these fraud schemes. This is how they've made their money. And they dare lecture us. They dare to claim to be some type of moral authority over us. And at the same time, ushering Islam into this country and condemning Christians, persecuting Christians in America. It says, wow, ICE is already filling up their detention centers in Minnesota as 2,000 agents stage a blitz in the Twin Cities. We're going to need a lot more deportation planes out here. Let's go. So they just arrived. I told you that in my last report. So I'm going to be doing another report to give you guys more information. I have to make sure they're not playing music on this. Hold on.
Yeah, I hate when they do that. When they play music.
They're playing music. So I'm not going to play the music. But this is just kind of a video that was put out by Homeland Security to show that they are in Minnesota rounding up people. I want to see a lot more Somalis because it doesn't look like any of the migrants or those that have come from, I'm sure they're involved in some, but it seems like mostly the ones from South America are not the ones committing this massive billion-dollar fraud. Yes, there is fraud happening because they've been giving, billions of dollars in aid, but understand active criminals who are using our system and scamming us here, they mostly come from Muslim countries. This is what is going on. And I want to see more of the Somalians locked up and more of these people who are, again, guys, they want to usher into America that America becomes an Islamic nation. They want Sharia law here. It is totally insane, guys. We are in the last days. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell because I have a lot more to show you very, very shortly.
I believe her. She always has something to show, and I love to watch. She's a really good person, really nice. Like, I like her reporting. I like her calmness. Even while she's heated up, she still, it's like she has it like controlled. Not me. I curse that motherfucker out. I'm like, fuck that shit. I ain't playing that. Okay, let's see what we have here. Ooh, Benny. Go ahead and set up for Benny. Let's check out what this is about. Oh, it's on.
Bragg to witness a military demonstration, special forces for President Trump. This is what it looked like. And you could see something pretty remarkable, a military black ops helicopter extracting a high-value target from an old building. President Trump was watching with great interest. So you can see here, Donald Trump was having the time of his life, enjoying watching what was a pretty awesome demonstration. And what I didn't realize at the time was that I was watching what was about to happen in Venezuela. Look at this. The same helicopters, probably the same teams. President Trump.
Wow, look how low they're flying.
Witnessing
That's fucking awesome.
what they just witnessed on the ground in Caracas. I was on the back of that Humvee right there. Did a whole video about it. There it is. Anyway, and then here we go. There go the
There
boys.
you go, setting up the ropes.
And the special forces.
They start jumping off, like they look like little. There they go.
Rope lining into a building and
They all start coming
extracting
down.
a high-value target. A terrorist they were planning on extracting. And what you didn't realize was that Donald Trump was just witnessing an operation, or maybe coming up with the idea for the operation. Pete Hegseth was with them here for the Venezuela extraction. It's freaking awesome. Anyway, the point is that I've just come to this realization, and it's pretty remarkable, along with some of the remarkable things that the U.S. forces did, and potentially the intelligence forces, certainly the intelligence forces did, in order to turn off all the lights in Venezuela, or at least Caracas.
With U.S. law enforcement, successfully captured Maduro in the dead of night. It was dark. The lights of Caracas were largely turned off due to a certain expertise that we have.
Due to a certain expertise that we have. Okay. Well, here we go. The Daily Mail here. Operation Absolute Resolve, how the U.S. captured Nicolas Maduro. Pretty amazing article here that details how it all went down. Pretty amazing step by step. And I think we should go through it here because it is the single most successful special forces mission in my lifetime or yours. Reconnaissance. Last August, CIA operatives were sent to Caracas on a secret reconnaissance mission in hope of grabbing Maduro without unwanted hiccups. Spies were tasked with carefully studying his movements and behavior. Spooks also had an asset within Maduro's circle, feeding their intel directly to the military. Audacious plan to forcibly remove him was put together. The U.S. built up an armada in the Caribbean because rising tensions between the two nations. Maduro knew of the imminent danger he faced. In an effort to evade capture, the 63-year-old began rotating between a half dozen locations, including multiple forts and fortresses. Elite U.S. troops, including Army's Delta Force, rehearsed their daring plan during a life-size replica of Maduro's safe house, just as SEAL Team 6 did before their nighttime missions to kill Osama bin Laden. Circling above the city at 50,000 feet was a stealth reconnaissance drone, an RQ-170 Sentinel launched from a U.S. naval station in Puerto Rico. It was confirmed that Maduro had gone to sleep in Fort Tunía. With all the pieces in place, Trump approved the operation at the end of December. Military intelligence planners, however, suggested a wait before better weather and cover. And then Trump gave the final go-ahead. In order to capture Maduro and clear an air corridor, more than 150 fighter jets, including F-35s and F-22s and bombers, struck Venezuela's defenses under the cover of darkness, supported by Super Hornets and B-12 Lance bombers, as well as E-2 Hawkeye early warning aircraft, radar jamming. Here are the munitions. Here are those platforms. The targets inside and close to Caracas were hit, including airfields, military bases, telecommunications towers, as well as a network of Chinese origin radars promoted as stealth aircraft hunters. Didn't work out too well. No visible air defense responses were ever detected. Yikes. Meanwhile, explosions were heard at the bases 75 miles away, home to Soviet-built missile launchers. Okay. Before and after. Got smoked. Got smoked. Look at this. can see here, all the missile launchers were gone. And here's how they disrupted all of the telecommunications that President Trump was talking about. How they went. Lights of Caracas were turned off due to an expertise that we had, says Donald Trump. It was dark and it was deadly, and Trump reiterated without giving away any details of the expertise that led to the all-important blackout. Some military experts, however, believe that the U.S. deployed a blackout bomb like they did in the Gulf War. This is a special multi-purpose munition dropped from a warplane, scattered into numerous mini canisters the size of a Coca-Cola can. Equipped with a parachute to slow their descent, they're packed full of confetti-like carbon fiber filaments. Once unleashed, they short-circuit electrical power equipment, such as transformers and switching stations. The use of the blackout bomb remains controversial. While a strike can plunge a city into darkness, it'll likely shut down power at nearby hospitals. The spring of 2003, Baghdad witness noted lights were out before the American-led invasion. That's how it works. So you just fry the electrical lines. U.S. Special Forces geared up an extraordinary early hours assault on Maduro. Helicopters flew 100 feet above the water, entered Venezuela without detection, covered by the darkness and by the blackout. Maduro loyalists attempted to fight back. One of the helicopters was damaged during a gun battle, but remained flyable. And the operation was remarkably successful. Explaining the operation at a press conference afterwards, Raising Cane said the overwhelming force was a response to Russian-made air shields. Venezuela spent billions to help protect them. They failed to protect them. Elite troops descended into the complex, armed with blowtorches in case they needed to storm through steel doors. FBI hostage negotiator in case Maduro refused to surrender. After overcoming dozens of armed guards in ferocious gun battle, leaving 80 of them dead, Delta Force reached Maduro as he fled from his bedroom with his wife, Celia Flores. Trump said the Venezuelan leader, in the final seconds of power, had tried to reach a steel vault panic room but was unable to close the door. He got bum rushed so fast that he didn't get into that, says Trump. Some U.S. forces were injured, Trump said, but none of them died. 40 Venezuelans were killed, according to the New York Times. Government of Cuba, a longstanding ally of Venezuela, said 32 nationals of their nationals were lost their lives. Weird that the Cubans were defending the Venezuelan leader. Cuba has provided personal security for Maduro since he came to power following Chavez's death. Not clear how many Cubans were guarding the Venezuelan president when they died, or how many just perished elsewhere. And then they brought him to New York. I did want to note that there is a really incredible breakdown on this YouTube channel right here. Channel has almost 2 million subscribers, and this breakdown is remarkable. How Delta Force captured Maduro in Venezuela. And so, shouting out the channel, I wanted to just jump into 3 really interesting quick clips. The first is how the power was blown out. This I find particularly fascinating. Let's go.
We finally have the declassified timeline of how U.S. forces breached the heart of Caracas and extracted Nicolas Maduro. Let's start with step 1, the setup. This didn't happen overnight. For months, the U.S. had been tightening a naval quarantine around Venezuela. The U.S. Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group and the U.S. Iwo Jima Amphibious Ready Group were parked off the coast. The pretext was clear. The U.S. designated the Venezuelan government a narco-terrorist state, specifically targeting the drugs lords. But while the Navy squeezed the coast, intelligence assets were tracking one man. They waited for a specific window, a moment where Maduro was stationary and vulnerable. Step 2, the strike. It began at exactly 2 in the morning Venezuelan Standard Time. High above, several F-35 stealth fighters punch a hole through the enemy lines, destabilizing their anti-air defenses. Like these Russian S-300 missiles located all over the strategic high-value target. With the skies clear, the path opens for Delta Force helicopters to fly straight towards the mission. Here comes the deception as the helicopters flew. The jets started firing with more strikes as it hit Fort Tuna, the main military base and command center, and La Carlova Air Base, destabilizing Venezuelan air support. Reports from the ground describe widespread explosions and a sudden communications blackout. The chaos wasn't the goal, it was the cover.
And here is how they break down the actual extraction of Maduro. Again, fascinating and makes you proud to be an American.
We finally have the declassified timeline of how U.S. forces breached the heart of Caracas and extracted Nicolas Maduro. Let's start with step one, the setup. This didn't happen overnight. For months, the U.S. had been tightening a naval quarantine around Venezuela. The U.S. Gerald R-4 Carrier Strike Group and the U.S. Iwo Jima Amphibious Ready Group were
They had
parked off the
agents
coast.
on the ground.
The pretext was clear. The U.S. designated the Venezuelan government a narco-terrorist state, specifically targeting the drugs lords. But while the Navy squeezed the coast, intelligence assets were tracking one man. They waited for a specific window, a moment where Maduro was stationary and vulnerable. Step two, the strike. It began at exactly 2 a.m. Venezuelan Standard Time. High above, several F-35 stealth fighters punch a hole through the enemy lines, destabilizing their anti-air defenses. Like these Russian S-300 missiles located all over the strategic high-value target. With the skies cleared, the path opens for Delta Force helicopters to fly straight towards the mission. Here comes the deception as the helicopters flew. The jets started firing with more strikes as it hit Fort Tuna, the main military base and command center, and La Carlova Air Base, destabilizing Venezuelan air support. Reports from the ground describe widespread explosions and a sudden communications blackout. The chaos wasn't the goal, it was the cover.
This channel also goes into some pretty remarkable buildups and how the American forces gained air superiority over the country. I encourage you to watch the full video. It is wildly entertaining and an incredible opportunity
Definitely
for
gonna
America
catch
to
it.
demonstrate its military might.
I think I'm
With the
subscribed to
Chinese
this
and
channel.
Russians and Iranians all watching. Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up. The American century is upon us. It's your boy Benny. Like, share, subscribe. God bless our troops.
All right, so what we're gonna do is we got 3 videos back to back to back of Tyson de la Cruz to wrap up the night. So sit back, relax. It's gonna be good. You know, Tyson, it's always good. All right, so let's go ahead and start this up.
What does more than 200 pounds of meth look like?
Holy shit!
You're looking at it. Investigators
Oh my
say
God.
this is the biggest drug seizure in King County history.
Oh my
They
God.
seized 214 pounds of meth, 5 pounds of heroin, and $89,000 in cash.
America, while you're buying groceries at your
God.
local supermarket, a Sinaloa cartel regional supplier is living in a quiet Linwood neighborhood, hiding 214 pounds of methamphetamine and 5 pounds of heroin in onion boxes and produce bags. Abraham Ortiz Ayala wasn't some street-level dealer. Prosecutors call him one of the highest-tier drug distributors in Washington state. But here's what should terrify you. When detectives arrested him on Alderwood Mall Parkway, they watched a Toyota Prius back into his garage. It was a burn crew trying to clear the stash house before police arrived. Intercepting that Prius secured 85 pounds of meth and exposed a sophisticated cartel operation hiding in plain sight in suburban America.
Yeah, right in our backyard.
What is up, guys? Tyson de la Cruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. This is the final chapter of Operation Eastbound and Down, a 3-month undercover investigation that exposed how the Sinaloa cartel has turned Pacific Northwest suburbs into distribution headquarters. Let me paint the picture of who Abraham Ortiz Ayala really is. This 31-year-old wasn't operating out of some sketchy warehouse or some abandoned building. He was living in a quiet Linwood neighborhood, the kind of place where families walk their dog and kids ride their bike. Your typical suburban street where nobody would suspect that one of Washington's highest-tier drug traffickers was running a multi-million-dollar cartel operation.
The suspect, Abraham Ortiz Ayala, is now in custody at the Snohomish County Jail. He's charged with 4 counts of possession of a controlled substance with intent to manufacture or deliver. He's being held on $1 million bail. Prosecutors say he is in the highest tier of drug distributors in the state.
When King County Sheriff's Office Special Emphasis team executed the search warrant on December 17th, they found 214 pounds of methamphetamine and 5 pounds of heroin. The street value of this, over $2 million. But here's what makes this operation so egregious: the produce camouflage. Ortiz Ayala wasn't using sophisticated hidden compartments. He was hiding millions of dollars worth of meth in boxes using the same store and regular Ziploc bags. Think about the psychology of that for a second. If a neighbor saw somebody carrying onion boxes into the house, you probably wouldn't even think twice. If you saw produce bags in somebody's garage, that probably wouldn't raise any red flags. Now, let me tell you about the most dramatic moment of this entire operation, the Burn Crew interception. When detectives arrested Ortiz Ayala on Alderwood Mall Parkway, they had surveillance of his Linwood residence, and that's when they saw it, a Toyota Prius backing into his garage. This wasn't a coincidence. This was actually a burn crew. Associates rushing to clear the stash house before police could execute the search warrant. The cartel knew Ortiz Ayala had been arrested, and they were trying to sanitize the location before law enforcement arrived. But King County detectives were already watching. It always feels like somebody's watching me. They intercepted that Prius and secured 85 pounds of methamphetamine that was about to disappear. It's gone.
We seized in this operation enough to kill about 4 million people, which is about half the state of Washington.
Let that sink in. Half of the population of Washington state.
This is, if not the largest, one of the largest that we've had.
Sergeant Ford says 12 suspects were arrested last Wednesday, spanning from Snohomish County down to Pierce County as part of the bust. And court documents revealed 6 of those suspects were part of a drug trafficking organization that worked out of 2 homes in Des Moines.
Ultimately, that this slows down the influx of drugs and controlled substances into our region.
Ortiz Ayala is sitting in jail on a $1 million bail, charged with 4 counts of possession of a controlled substance with intent to manufacture or deliver. But his arrest is just one piece of a much larger operation.
A 4-county narcotics investigation titled Operation Eastbound and Down netted 4 arrests and a large quantity of fentanyl, methamphetamine, and other drugs in 3 cities, including their alleged chief suppliers based in Bridgeport.
This wasn't just about one supplier in one suburb. This was about dismantling the entire regional distribution network. The operation started in Bridgeport, Washington, a small mountainous community with about 300 residents. Apparently, this was a rural choke point where cartel suppliers were receiving more than 100 pounds of narcotics every few weeks, then parceling out to local dealers across King, Pierce, and other counties. King County detectives confirmed the operation had direct ties to the Sinaloa cartel in Mexico. This wasn't speculation. This was documented cartel infrastructure operating on American soil.
We've had multiple sources that we've arrested that they were working with the cartel.
Search warrants were served in Bridgeport, Linwood, and Kirkland. The coordination was from this network.
Search warrants allegedly recovered more than 70 pounds of methamphetamine, 16 pounds of powdered fentanyl, nearly 7 pounds of heroin, and 1.5 pounds of cocaine, plus almost $84,000 in cash suspected to be proceeds from drug sales.
But it wasn't just the quantity, it was the sophistication. In Kirkland, detectives raided an apartment complex in October 2025 and found almost no furniture. Instead, they discovered pounds of drugs in vacuum-sealed brick-shaped packages. The apartment wasn't a residence, it was a cartel stash house. What made Operation Eastbound and Down so effective was the combination of old school police work and cutting edge technology. Meet Canine Deputy Quinn, a drug detective dog who was instrumental to building the case against these cartel operators.
A lot of what Canine Quinn does is a lot of verification, locating things that could be hidden.
But Quinn's nose obviously wasn't the only tool. Investigators also used a handheld laser analyzer at the scene, technology that can confirm chemical makeup of suspected narcotics within seconds. This technology eliminates the need to wait for lab results. Detectives can confirm they're dealing with methamphetamine, fentanyl, or heroin right there on the scene, which is crucial for building probable cause and making arrests. The special emphasis team also conducted extensive undercover operations. They identified regional suppliers, made controlled buys, and built cases that would uphold in court.
According to the King County Health Department, fentanyl is now involved in 70% of King County overdose deaths this past year.
The more they can make, brings down the price, the more available it is for everybody.
So it's kind of a supply and demand thing. This is why this operation matters. Every pound of meth and fentanyl seized is lives saved. Every cartel supplier arrested is a distribution network disrupted. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room for a minute. The Sinaloa cartel's direct involvement in this particular operation. Prosecutors argue that Ortiz Ayala was supplied directly by a Mexican-based source, and the seized cash was meant to cycle back into Mexico to fund the next shipment.
Former Canadian snowboarder Ryan Wedding was added to the list, allegedly running a drug trafficking network and orchestrating multiple murders related to the ring. The assistant director of the FBI is quoted as saying, Wedding went from shredding powder on the slopes at the Olympics to distributing powder cocaine on the streets.
This is the Sinaloa cartel's suburban strategy. Recruit people who can blend in, establish operations in quiet neighborhoods, and move massive quantities of drugs through seemingly normal residential areas. The $229,000 in cash seized during Operation Eastbound and Down wasn't just drug proceeds. It was operational funding for the cartel. That money was going back to Mexico to purchase the next shipment, pay off corrupt officials, and fund the organization's broader activities. Despite this massive success, King County Sheriff's Office is fighting this battle with one hand tied behind their back. They currently have 100 vacancies they need to fill. Think about that. They just pulled off one of the largest drug busts in county history while operating significantly understaffed.
As one door closes, another door opens. As one thing ends, another thing begins. It's a constant battle against each other.
This, my friends, is the truth that nobody wants to acknowledge. Taking down Ortiz Ayala and his network is an absolute huge win. But the Sinaloa cartel isn't going away. They'll recruit new suppliers, establish new distribution networks, and continue operating until we address the actual root cause. The detective put it bluntly, we know we'll never stop the flow of drugs, but we can't stand and do nothing. This investigation is still ongoing and spans most of Washington state. 6 arrests have been made so far, but prosecutors say there could be more charges and more arrests to come as the investigation continues to develop. The vehicle used in this operation has been seized, and over $229,000 in drug proceeds have been confiscated. America, the Sinaloa cartel isn't operating out of abandoned warehouses and sketchy neighborhoods anymore. They're in Linwood, hiding 214 pounds of meth in onion boxes in a house that looks exactly like yours. Abraham Ortiz Ayala was your neighbor, walking the same streets, shopping at the same stores, living the suburban dream while moving $2 million in drugs that can kill half of Washington state. The burn crew that tried to clear his stash house with the Toyota Prius shows how organized and prepared these networks are. They had a contingency plan for the contingency plan. If this is what they can accomplish understaffed, imagine what they could do with full support. Let me know what you think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.
All right, the next one's coming up next. So let's go ahead and get a pause on here and switch over and enjoy Tyson the Cruz.
A gentleman sitting in about the 3rd or 4th row to my left suddenly stood up and jabbed a finger at him and said what our producer Que Guerrero says in Spanish was, "You will pay," at which point Maduro calmly looked at him and said, "Soy hombre de Dios," meaning I am a man of God, and then said, "Soy prisionera de la guerra," I'm a prisoner of war.
America, Nicolas Maduro stood in front of a New York courtroom wearing orange prison clothes and declared himself a prisoner of war. The man who's been flooding American streets with fentanyl, who invited China, Russia, and Iran into our hemisphere, who's starving his own people. He is now in chains. But check this out. The same Democrats who cheered when Obama bombed Libya for 7 months without asking Congress are losing their minds because Trump captured a narco-terrorist using the exact same legal authority. The hypocrisy here is absolutely stunning. Obama overthrows Gaddafi and turns Libya into a failed state with open slave markets. Absolute crickets here. Trump captures a drug trafficker who killed hundreds of thousands of Americans, and suddenly, it's an unconstitutional invasion.
Why does China need their oil? Why does Russia need their oil? Why does Iran need their oil?
They're not even in this continent. This is the Western Hemisphere. This is where we live. And we're not going to allow the Western Hemisphere to be a base of operation for adversaries.
What is up, guys? Tyson Dela Cruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. Let me show you what's really happening here, because while American socialists are protesting in the streets, actual Venezuelans are celebrating their freedom for the first time in decades. Let me take you inside the New York courtroom, because what happened there was absolutely unprecedented in American history. Nicolas Maduro walked in wearing a standard issue orange prison garb under a navy V-neck t-shirt. This man, who once illegitimately ruled Venezuela like a king for years and is now standing before an American judge like every other criminal.
This was unlike anything I have ever seen. I've never seen a head of state in a U.S. courtroom before as a defendant.
When the judge asked him to confirm his identity, Maduro tried to launch a political speech. He wanted to tell everybody that he was kidnapped, that he's still the illegitimate president, and that this is all illegitimate. But the judge absolutely wasn't having it. Cut off Maduro, told him that there'll be time for that later in the proper legal motions.
Put aside what he was wearing, put aside that he is wearing the bulky translation headphones. In his comportment, he was carrying himself as if he continued to believe that he is the president of Venezuela.
The reporter who was in the courtroom said the contrast was actually jarring. This man genuinely believes that he's still in charge, even though he's facing terrorism charges that'll put him away for life. But then came a dramatic moment. Maduro was leaving the courtroom, and a man in the gallery stood up and pointed directly at him. And listen to what happens next.
A gentleman sitting in about the third or fourth row to my left suddenly stood up and jabbed a finger at him and said what our producer Guerrero says in Spanish was, "You will pay," at which point Maduro calmly looked at him and said, "Soy hombre de Dios," meaning I am a man of God, and then said, "Soy prisionera de la guerra," I am a prisoner of war. And the exchange between them started to continue until a court officer, who had already warned everyone before the proceedings started that if you were to make a statement, you would be immediately ejected, looked at the guy who was wearing a suit, seemed like any other employee of the government who might have come to watch. And indeed, there were scores of people from the DEA, from the Department of Homeland Security. At that point, the court security officer jabbed his and said, "You out." And that all happened as Judge Hellerstein stood up from the bench.
The man shouted at Maduro, and Maduro calmly responded that he's a man of God and a prisoner of war. Before the exchange could escalate, court security ejected the man from the courtroom. The level of emotion surrounding this particular case, people who've suffered under Maduro's regime couldn't even contain themselves when they see him in chains. Now let's destroy the left's argument that this operation was somehow illegal, because this is where the hypocrisy becomes absolutely transparent. Trump 1973 to conduct this particular operation. That is a federal law that allows the president to deploy military force for up to 60 days without congressional approval, as long as he notifies Congress within 48 hours. Trump followed the law to the letter. He notified Congress, conducted precise operations. It was an amazing operation, by the way. Captured a narco-terrorist and got out. No occupation, no regime change, no 20-year war, just law enforcement against a drug trafficker who's been poisoning American communities. But here's where it gets rich. Obama used this exact same war powers resolution to bomb Libya for 7 months. He overthrew Gaddafi without congressional approval, turned Libya into a failed state with open slave markets, and Democrats, they cheered. Clinton used it, Reagan used it, but now that Trump used it to capture somebody who's actually threatening Americans, suddenly it's unconstitutional.
Venezuela invited Cuba, they invited Nicaragua, but they also invited China and Russia and Iran and Hezbollah into our hemisphere. They've got more oil than Saudi. That's going to drive down the price of Russian oil. And it's to take money out of Putin's pocket.
Listen to the national security rationale here. Venezuela invited China, Russia, Iran, Hezbollah into our hemisphere. They were using Venezuelan territory as a base to threaten American interests. This wasn't just about oil. This is about preventing hostile foreign powers from operating in our backyard.
My main worry is that we're going to be sucked into another prolonged 20-year war with no real end in sight.
We saw it in Iraq in 2003. With a takeover of a country that was no threat to us in the name of a resource, namely oil.
This protester is comparing Venezuela to Iraq, saying we're going to be stuck in another 20-year war. I understand the trauma from previous administrations and presidents, but this operation was absolutely precise. That is complete nonsense. Trump conducted a precise operation, captured a target, and got out. There were no American troops occupying Venezuela. This wasn't a complete regime change. This was arresting a criminal. Now, let me show you these protesters because obviously it reveals everything you need to know about the modern left. Within hours of Maduro's capture, protesters hit the streets in Denver, California, Arizona, Albuquerque. And who are they defending? A narco-terrorist who's been indicted for drug trafficking.
Protesters hit the streets in downtown Denver, calling for accountability here at home.
People are literally holding up signs saying no war on Venezuela, hands off Venezuela. They're defending a man who killed political opponents, starved his own people, and flooded American communities with fentanyl. Let that sink in.
Regardless of the objectives of something like this Venezuela invasion, legality is necessary. The Constitution applies at all times, and nothing about this is at all legal or constitutional or in the way a democratic nation should handle such a thing. We're out here to say that we're not going to stand for that.
This protester in Arizona is calling it an unconstitutional invasion. Where was this concern for the Constitution when Obama was bombing Libya? Or the concern when Clinton was doing it to Bosnia? These people obviously don't care about legality. They care about opposing Trump no matter what he does. Now listen to this protester's logic because it's absolutely stunning.
And while Maduro really is not a good guy, he's a terrible dictator, I don't think that Trump is going to help their people. I don't think that's his intent here.
Did you catch that? She admits that Maduro was a terrible dictator, but she's protesting his capture because she doesn't trust Trump's motives. So let me get this straight. Even when Trump does something objectively good, capturing a narco-terrorist, they oppose it because of who's doing it. That, my friends, is not principle. That is something called Trump derangement syndrome. Now, let me show you the complete opposite reaction. Actual Venezuelans who lived under Maduro's regime or have family members who currently do. Because while privileged white American socialists are protesting, Venezuelans are celebrating in the streets.
Cheers and celebration erupted as word spread of President Nicolas Maduro's capture. Houston is home to the second largest Venezuelan population in the country. Many told us this moment represents something they never thought they'd see. Hope of returning home, reuniting with loved ones, and finally turning the page after years of uncertainty.
Many of the people will return. I will be able to visit Venezuela again, which is something I haven't done in the last 14 years.
I never thought that I would see this happen.
Listen to what she's saying. She hasn't been able to visit Venezuela in 14 years. 14 years of exile because Maduro made her country unlivable. And now she's finally seeing hope that she can go home and potentially reunite with her family. The contrast couldn't be clearer. Actual Venezuelans who suffer under Maduro are celebrating this capture, while privileged American leftists who never experienced life under a dictatorship are protesting in the streets, calling it an illegal invasion is absolutely backwards. Now let me show you a bigger strategic picture here because Maduro's capture is potentially just the beginning. Cuba has been surviving entirely off Venezuelan oil money. With Maduro gone, the lifeline is cut off. And Trump knows exactly what's about to happen.
Cuba always survived because of Venezuela. Now they won't have that money coming in. They won't have the income coming in.
Are you considering U.S. action in Cuba?
We're not. I think it's just going to fall. I don't think we need any action.
Trump is saying Cuba is ready to fall on its own. They don't need military intervention. Just cut off the money from Venezuela and watch the regimes collapse. That's pretty strategically brilliant. Why risk American lives when you can just cut off their funding and let gravity do the rest of the work?
Colombia is very sick too, run by a sick man who likes making cocaine and selling it to the United States. And he's not going to be doing it very long, let me tell you.
What does that mean? He's not going to be doing it very long.
He's not doing it very long. He has cocaine mills and cocaine factories.
That's not a threat. That is a promise. Promises made, promises kept. If you're trafficking drugs into America, you are a target. The flow of drugs into America is about to get a lot more expensive and a lot more difficult. This isn't just about Maduro. This is about reclaiming the entire Western Hemisphere from hostile foreign powers.
Why does China need their oil? Why does Russia need their oil? Why does Iran need their oil? They're not even in this continent. This is the Western Hemisphere. This is where we live, and we're not going to allow the Western Hemisphere to be a base of operation for adversaries, competitors, and rivals of the United States.
Initially, I was on the fence about Rubio, but he has proven a key player in the Trump administration. This is the Western Hemisphere. This is where we live, and we're not going to come from outside our hemisphere, destabilize our region, and make us pay the price for it. The Western Hemisphere belongs to the Americas, not to China, not to Russia, not to Iran. Venezuela invited all three of those adversaries to establish operations in their backyard, and Trump just shut it down. And here's what the left doesn't completely comprehend. This isn't just about oil. We have plenty of oil in America. This is about preventing hostile foreign powers from using Venezuela as a base to threaten American interests. China was using Venezuelan oil. Russia was using Venezuelan territory. Iran was using Venezuelan banks. All that just ended with one precise operation. America, what we're witnessing is a complete transformation of U.S. policy towards Latin America. For decades, we have watched our socialist dictators partner with China, Russia, and Iran to undermine American interest in our own hemisphere. We watched as drug traffickers poisoned our communities while hiding behind claims of sovereignty. We watched as Cuba survived on Venezuelan oil money while oppressing their people. All that just ended. Trump used the War Powers Resolution. This is the same legal authority that Obama, Clinton, and Reagan used to conduct a precise operation to capture a narco-terrorist dictator. Maduro is now sitting in a New York jail cell next to Diddy, wearing orange prison garb, facing terrorism charges that will keep him locked up for life.
This is unprecedented to snatch a leader of a country in a foreign jurisdiction and bring him to the U.S. However, the U.S. Supreme Court has said that doesn't matter how he got here. He's here now.
Maduro's lawyers will argue head of state immunity and illegal capture, but those arguments have already been rejected by the courts. Cuba is on the verge of collapse without Venezuelan money. Cocaine's Colombian producing president just got put on notice. Mexico is being pressured to crack down on cartels or face economic consequences. The only people protesting are American socialists who never lived under a dictatorship and street-level drug dealers who are about to see their costs go up. The contrast is perfect. Actual Venezuelans who suffered under Maduro are celebrating in the streets of Houston because they might finally be able to go home after decades. Meanwhile, privileged American socialists are holding protests claiming this is an illegal invasion because they can't stand Trump succeed. Secretary Rubio said it best. This is the Western Hemisphere. This is where we live. And hostile foreign powers are not going to destabilize our region and make us pay the price, not under the Trump administration. That's the Trump doctrine. Protect American interests, secure our hemisphere, and hold narco-terrorists accountable no matter where they hide. The days of treating drug traffickers like legitimate heads of state are over. Let me know what you think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.
Oh, thank you for that upload. We're going to see what happens. It's going to be a wild 2026. We just started. All right, let's set up for the last video of the night. And that's reserved for Tyson. So let's go ahead and watch.
The taxpayer-backed Baltimore Children and Youth Fund nonprofit pays its president a salary of $219,000 a year, a notable increase from recent years that some experts say raises questions about best practices for nonprofits.
America, Pandora's box just got ripped wide open. While everybody's focusing on Minnesota's fraud, Baltimore is running the exact same grift. We're talking about $18 million in taxpayer funds flowing through nonprofits and city offices where executives are pulling down six-figure salaries while nobody can explain where a single dollar is going. The president of one nonprofit makes $219,000 a year, while the city can't produce a line-by-line breakdown of how $2 million is being spent. This is the blueprint for Democrat grift economy. And Baltimore's Mayor Brandon Scott is running a masterclass. What is up, guys? Tyson Dela Cruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. What we're seeing exposed in Minnesota just opened Pandora's box, and Baltimore is about to be the next domino to fall. Let me break down the Baltimore Children and Youth Fund scam. This taxpayer-backed nonprofit received $16 million in guaranteed annual funding from Baltimore City. That, my friends, is not fundraising. That is a guaranteed check from taxpayers every single year. And the president, Alicia Lee, makes $219,000 a year.
BCYF receives $16 million taxpayer dollars from Baltimore City this year that is guaranteed annually to support programs for kids. Spotlight on Maryland obtained documentation of BCYF salaries as of October in a public information request that shows of its 23 employees, only 3 make less than the median household income in Baltimore City of roughly $60,000. The average salary at the organization is about $90,000. 6 employees, which is about 1 in 4 members of the staff, make at least $100,000.
Now get this, according to their documentation, Lee's salary increased from 18 to 27% since 2023. A BCYF spokesperson claimed it was only an 18% increase since 2022 when she made $185,000. But here's where it gets interesting. Their tax form from fiscal year 2023 shows Lee made $172,000 a year. Which one is it? Because that, my friends, is a 27% raise in 2 years. Professor Erica Harris from Florida International University, who specializes in nonprofit accounting, said it perfectly.
Absent that kind of growth, a pretty substantial growth in the organization, no, I would say that a 27% increase in someone's salary in such a short period of time does not appear to be best practices.
But it gets worse. Of the BCYF's 23 employees, only 3 make less than Baltimore's median household income of $60,000. The average salary at this organization is $90,000. 6 employees, that's 1 in 4 staff members, make at least $100,000 a year. Total salaries, $2.67 million, which accounts for 16% of their entire Baltimore City taxpayer budget. And here's the most damning part. When asked about their compensation process on their tax form, BCYF checked no under the section asking if they include review or approval by independent persons and or comparable data.
With following best practices, we expect to see yes checked to that box every time. When it's not, the public should be wary of, is this person being paid appropriately or not?
Now let's talk about the Mayor's Office of Arts, Culture, and Entertainment, known as MOAS. The office has a $2 million budget and is responsible for putting Baltimore's largest events together, including AFRAM, Artscape, and Charm City Live. Sounds great, doesn't it? There's just one problem. 6 months into the fiscal year, the city cannot explain how the money's being spent. Spotlight on Maryland requested a line-by-line breakdown of expenses. The response? No response documents exist. Think about that. A city office with a $2 million budget has no documentation of how they're spending taxpayer money.
I'll say this.
Councilman Mark Conway finds it unacceptable.
I think it's not acceptable.
Councilman Mark Conway, and he was the only one out of 14 council members to respond, said this is an office spending public dollars, and you would expect that they have accurate accounting of those dollars. Neither MOAS, Mayor Brandon Scott's team, the city budget director, nor city department could provide itemized accounting. MOAS's $2 million is included in the budget in one line item. Think about that. When Spotlight on Maryland asked MAOS directly if it tracks spending, the office refused to answer and referred questions to the city law department, which then didn't respond.
Luke Spreen says he found it a bit surprising that the city could not come up with an answer. Spreen is an associate professor at the University of Maryland, teaching economics and public finance.
So in the middle of the fiscal year, I would think that you would be able to produce a report that says today we've spent this amount associated with this fund within our budget.
But Baltimore's nonprofit grift is just the tip of the iceberg. Maryland state agencies are scrambling like eggs after auditors revealed they're spending nearly $3.5 billion without any way to back up funding.
Tonight, we're following renewed concerns over how your elected leaders keep track of your tax dollars at both the city and state level.
Spotlight on Maryland is investigating who oversees money given to nonprofits in Baltimore. And we're also looking into how state agencies allocated nearly $3.5 billion without ensuring the money was actually going to come through.
When you start wasting federal dollars, it gives the Trump administration the perfect excuse to say, we'll send you less of them the next time.
In a year-end review of 8 different state agencies, auditors with Maryland's Office of Legislative Audits found billions of federal funds which has not properly been recorded. In some cases, agencies were spending federal funds before they even ever arrived in the bank account. At Maryland's Department of Health, $425 million in unsupported funds. The Department of Human Services, $1.3 billion. The Department of Education, $176 million. State Highway Administration, $660 million. Maryland Transit Administration, $755 million. The Department of Emergency Management, $86 million. Labor Department, $63 million.
There's potential here for extreme risk to the Maryland taxpayer of never seeing any of these funds.
In all, auditors uncovered $3.42 billion, mostly of federal funds, which cannot be supported by state documents. Auditors wrote, to the extent these unsupported revenue entries are uncollectible, they may represent deficit balances that require state general funds or other state funds to resolve. Translation, Maryland taxpayers might be on the hook for billions in phantom federal funding that was never actually coming in.
A new state audit claims several Maryland agencies exempt from the state's typical financial guidelines aren't putting their own safeguards in place to keep track of spending.
But wait, there's more. Another audit found 42 different offices in state government spending a total of $8.5 billion last year with little or no oversight. These offices are exempt from complying with state procurement laws. And while they're supposed to adopt their own policies, auditors found the State Lottery and Gaming Control Agency, the Maryland Core Program, the Maryland State Archives, and the Maryland Energy Administration had no procurement policy on paper. Let me be honest with you about something for a moment. The real money maker isn't starting your own business, rising to high ranks at your company, or even landing a high-paying sales job. You want to hop on the grift train? Open up a nonprofit that provides daycare services. Open up a nonprofit that pretends to help the youth with crime. You make millions of dollars, just like these people do in blue-led city states.
It can be really demoralizing for staff to see a leader's compensation soar while their own compensation remains stagnant.
Look at the pattern. Guaranteed taxpayer funding, 6-figure executive salaries, zero accountability. The problems never ever get solved because if you actually solve the problem, the money would stop flowing. The incentive structure is completely backwards here. And here's the beautiful part about this grift. More than 50% of the BCYF staff is based in Maryland, but they don't say exactly how many employees work out of state. So you're paying Maryland Maryland taxes to fund salaries for people who might not even live in Maryland.
Well, Maryland is facing yet another projected budget deficit next year, largely due to increases in public education spending.
All while this is happening, Maryland is facing another projected $1.4 billion budget deficit next year. They passed $1.6 billion in new taxes and fees in 2025, but apparently, obviously, it wasn't enough, because when you have billions and billions of dollars unaccounted for in spending and nonprofit executives making $219,000 a year, while the problem gets worse, absolutely no amount of money in tax increases will ever be enough. Now let's talk about Baltimore's mayor, Brandon Scott. You want to know how to become a mayor in a blue city? You don't even need experience. Focus on DEI hiring and just smile for the camera. It worked for Brandon Mohawk Johnson. It worked for Brandon Scott. And obviously it worked for Zohran Mamdani. Scott has been crystal clear about his priorities, but accountability for taxpayer dollars doesn't seem to be one of them. When asked about MAOS's missing $2 million in documentation, his team couldn't obviously provide an answer. When BCYF's executive compensation raised red flags, his administration obviously stayed silent.
We must also address the serious budget challenges we face with honesty and discipline.
Governor Wes Moore says they need to address budget challenges with honesty and discipline. But how can you have honesty when city officers can't produce basic spending documentation? How can you have discipline when nonprofit executives are getting 27% raises while the city faces massive deficits? The Baltimore City Inspector General is expected to release a second report on BCYF in the new year. The second report found a lack of oversight from city officials over particular funding. Meanwhile, the Baltimore City Council proposed a new bill that would update regulations of that fund, including increased financial reporting from the grantees. This is the exact same playbook we're seeing in Minnesota. We're seeing it in California. We're seeing it in every Democrat-run jurisdiction. Create nonprofits with guaranteed taxpayer funding, pay executives six-figure salaries, eliminate oversight, and when auditors start asking questions, claim you're working on reforms. Worst case scenario, blame Trump. Miraculously, state agencies have no idea where the money is going. Sounds pretty familiar, doesn't it? They're taking a play out of Gavin Newsom's playbook. California has perfected the art of losing track of billions and billions of dollars of taxpayer money while homelessness gets worse, crime increases, and problems multiply.
The hair Joe gets more on his hair.
Federal dollars. It gives the Trump administration the perfect excuse to say, we'll send you less of them the next time.
And he's absolutely right. Why should federal taxpayers send billions to Maryland when state agencies can't even document their money properly? Why should Baltimore residents pay taxes to fund nonprofits where executives make $219,000 a year while the city can't produce line-by-line budget breakdowns? The lack of oversight, the lack of accountability, phantom budgets, the six-figure nonprofit salaries, and Baltimore is running it exactly like California, exactly like Minnesota, exactly like every other blue jurisdiction where taxpayer money disappears into black hole programs of incentives and never solving the freaking problem. An outside accounting firm has now been called in to examine accounting practices at state agencies. But here's the question that nobody's asking. How did this get so bad in the first place? How do you spend $3.42 billion without documentation? How do you run a $2 million city office without tracking expenses? How do you give nonprofit executives a 27% raise while the city faces massive budget deficits? America, Minnesota opened up Pandora's box, and Baltimore is about to get burned about what comes out. When nonprofit executives are making six-figure salaries with guaranteed tax funding while state agencies can't account for billions of dollars, you're not looking at incompetence. You're looking at a system designed to enrich insiders while the problems actually never get solved. Brandon Scott can't explain where $2 million went, but I guarantee he can tell you about his DEI initiatives are doing great. The Trump administration is watching, federal auditors are circling, and Baltimore's grift economy is about to face the same scrutiny that's tearing through Minnesota. The only question is, how many more six-figure nonprofit executives are going to get exposed before the house of cards collapse? Let me know
Yeah,
what you think about
that's in
this. Drop
every
it
state.
down in the comment section down below.
Every
Smash the like
state.
if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.
Yeah, thank you, second great upload. That part is in every state, every major city, every state. It doesn't matter if it's red and blue. It's all the same fraud. That freaking sucks. But what a great show we had tonight. It was pretty cool. Thank you for those who came by and watched. Truly appreciate it. And for those who are going to be rewatching, thank you for watching. And I'm out of here. I'm tired. I always get tired this time at night. So it's like I'm happy once I get off the show. But have a good morning, good afternoon, and a good night. And I'll catch you on the flip side. And I'll be back on here tomorrow, same time, 7:30, same place, My Mind Over Your Matter. So with that said, have a good one. Good night.